This is Daniel Rothman on Emergency Broadcast 91.48 FM, coming to you live from our secure studio location in the Northwest Tower District. The time is now 6:47 p.m. and we are continuing our coverage of what health officials are calling an unprecedented medical crisis developing across our city and potentially beyond. If you're just joining us, please stay tuned for critical information that may affect your safety and the safety of your family.
Daniel, I'm getting another update from the State Health Department. They're confirming at least 17 hospitals across the metro area have reported similar incidents. Patients who underwent routine procedures within the last 72 hours are exhibiting what doctors are describing as acute behavioral disturbances.
Emily, can you clarify what they mean by behavioral disturbances? We need to be specific for our listeners.
According to the briefing I'm reading, patients are showing sudden aggression, confusion, inability to recognize family members, and in some cases, complete personality inversions. One report mentions a patient who underwent a simple appendectomy on Monday morning and by Tuesday evening was found trying to harm nursing staff.
That's deeply concerning. We've been receiving calls all afternoon from families trying to locate loved ones who are currently hospitalized. The phone lines here have been overwhelmed. Emily has been managing incoming information while I try to keep you updated with verified facts only. We will not spread rumors or unconfirmed reports. What we're telling you is coming directly from official channels and our field reporter.
Michael is standing by. He's positioned near Mercy General Hospital on the east side. Michael, are you receiving us clearly?
I hear you both. I'm about 2 blocks west of Mercy General's main entrance. The situation here has evolved significantly in the last hour. When I arrived at 4 o'clock, there was moderate activity, some ambulances, concerned family members gathering outside. Now the entire perimeter has been cordoned off by police and what appears to be National Guard units.
National Guard? Can you confirm that, Michael?
Absolutely confirmed. I can see at least 8 military vehicles, personnel in full uniform establishing checkpoints at every access point to the hospital grounds. They're not allowing anyone in or out. I spoke briefly with an officer who told me they received deployment orders approximately 90 minutes ago.
Daniel, I'm cross-referencing that timeline with the alerts we received. The governor's office issued a state of emergency declaration at 5:15 p.m. That aligns with Michael's observation.
For those just tuning in, let me be clear about what we know at this moment. Multiple hospitals are under quarantine protocols. The National Guard has been activated. The governor has declared a state of emergency. Health officials believe contaminated surgical equipment may be the transmission vector for what they're calling a viral pathogen with neurological effects. We do not yet have confirmation on how widespread this is beyond our immediate region.
Daniel, I'm seeing something now. A convoy of unmarked vehicles just arrived at the hospital's service entrance. Personnel in full hazmat suits are unloading equipment. This looks like a coordinated federal response.
That matches what I'm seeing in the latest dispatch. The CDC has deployed rapid response teams to 6 major cities, including ours. They're categorizing this as a Class A biological event.
Emily, what does Class A mean in practical terms?
It means they consider this a significant threat to public health requiring immediate containment measures. It's the highest domestic alert level for infectious disease situations.
I want to address our listeners directly. If you or someone you know has been in a hospital for any reason in the past week, please pay attention to this next part. Health officials are asking you to monitor for these specific symptoms: sudden severe headaches, confusion, disorientation, unusual aggression, sensitivity to light, and difficulty recognizing familiar people or places. If you observe any of these signs, do not attempt to drive to a hospital. Call the emergency hotline that's been established. Emily, do we have that number verified?
Yes, the state hotline is 1-800-555-0147. I'm repeating that, 1-800-555-0147. That number is staffed 24 hours and will connect you directly with medical crisis coordinators.
I need to interrupt. Something is happening at the checkpoint nearest to me. Officers are putting on protective gear. There's a lot of radio communication happening very quickly.
Michael, are you in a safe position?
I'm maintaining distance as advised. I'm observing from behind a concrete barrier, approximately 50 meters from the checkpoint. Wait, they're opening the hospital's main doors. Someone is being brought out on a stretcher. Multiple someones. I count at least 4 gurneys being loaded into a specialized transport vehicle.
Daniel, I just received word that Regional Medical Center downtown has initiated full lockdown. All emergency room services have been suspended. They're diverting ambulances to facilities outside the quarantine zones.
How many facilities are we talking about, Emily?
The list I have shows 23 hospitals and urgent care centers across the metro area, now under some form of restriction. That number has doubled since our last update 30 minutes ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to understand the gravity of what's unfolding. Our healthcare system is experiencing a crisis unlike anything in recent memory. The very places we depend on for healing have become potential exposure sites. The irony and tragedy of this situation is not lost on anyone here. We're going to continue providing you with information as it becomes available, but I also want to talk about what you should be doing right now if you're listening.
Daniel, we're getting reports that pharmacies are seeing massive rushes. People are trying to stock up on medications and supplies.
That's understandable, but I'm urging calm and rational behavior. Panic buying helps no one. If you have prescription medications, ensure you have your current supply but do not hoard. Our supply chains are still functioning. The governor has activated emergency distribution protocols to prevent shortages.
The transport vehicles are leaving the hospital now. They have full police escort, heading north on Patterson Avenue. I can see the convoy includes at least 6 vehicles moving in tight formation.
Michael, any indication where they're headed?
Negative. They're moving fast with lights, but no sirens. Professional and coordinated. This has the look of a well-rehearsed extraction protocol.
I'm receiving confirmation that a federal quarantine facility has been activated at the former military base, 40 miles north of the city. That's likely their destination.
The former Whitmore Air Station. That facility was decommissioned 8 years ago, but apparently maintained for exactly this type of emergency scenario. Emily, do we know anything about the capacity or capabilities of that site?
Limited information. The documents I'm seeing indicate it was upgraded 2 years ago with biohazard containment infrastructure. It can reportedly house up to 500 individuals in isolation conditions.
500. Let's hope that's sufficient. Michael, what's the current situation at your location now?
The perimeter remains locked down. I'm seeing family members being turned away at the checkpoints. There's a woman about 30 feet from me arguing with officers. She's saying her husband is inside, and she hasn't heard from him since this morning. The officers are trying to calm her, but they're not allowing any exceptions.
Daniel, this is heartbreaking. We're getting calls from people in similar situations. They're desperate for information about their family members.
I understand that desperation. If you have a loved one currently in one of the affected hospitals, please know that authorities are working to establish a family notification system. I know that's not enough when you're frightened and worried, but storming hospital barricades will only create more chaos. The professionals responding to this situation are trying to protect everyone, including the patients inside those facilities.
We're being told that a press conference is scheduled for 8 p.m. The governor will be speaking along with the state health commissioner and representatives from the CDC.
That's in just over an hour. We will broadcast that conference live and provide analysis immediately following. In the meantime, let's talk about what we're actually dealing with here from a medical standpoint. Emily has been compiling information from various health bulletins. Emily, what have you learned about this pathogen?
The preliminary reports suggest we're looking at a virus that affects the central nervous system. It appears to have an extremely short incubation period, possibly as little as 12 to 36 hours from exposure to symptom onset. That's unusually rapid for most viral infections.
And the transmission vector is confirmed to be medical equipment?
That's the leading theory, specifically surgical instruments that may not have been properly sterilized. The investigation is focusing on a potential breakdown in sterilization protocols at multiple facilities. What's baffling to health officials is how this could happen simultaneously across so many locations.
That does raise questions. Are we looking at equipment failure, human error, or something else?
The CDC team is investigating whether there might be a common source. Several hospitals in our region use the same medical equipment supplier and sterilization service. That's one angle they're pursuing.
Daniel, Emily, I'm repositioning to get a better view of the hospital's north wing. I can see activity on one of the upper floors. Lights are on in what appears to be an entire ward. Silhouettes moving past the windows, but I can't make out details from this distance.
Michael, please maintain safe distance. Your priority is staying secure and providing us with observations, not taking risks.
Understood. I'm being careful. There's something else I should mention. The cellular network seems unstable. I've had 3 dropped connections in the last 20 minutes. Our radio link is holding, but phone service appears compromised.
That aligns with reports I'm seeing. Several cellular providers have issued alerts about network congestion. The volume of calls and data usage is overwhelming infrastructure in certain areas.
If you're trying to reach family or friends by phone and experiencing difficulties, that's likely due to network overload, not necessarily a more serious problem. Text messages may have better success than voice calls during high traffic periods. But again, Do not spread rumors if you can't reach someone immediately. The networks are simply strained.
Daniel, I have an update on the patient count. The latest figures show approximately 430 individuals across all affected facilities displaying symptoms consistent with this infection.
430. That number has been climbing steadily all day. This morning's initial reports mention fewer than 100 cases.
The increase is concerning, but health officials are saying it may partly reflect better identification and reporting rather than exclusively new cases. As awareness spreads, medical staff are recognizing symptoms they might have initially attributed to other causes.
That's a fair point. In the early stages of any outbreak, there's always a period where cases are being properly identified and categorized. Michael, are you still in position at Mercy General?
Affirmative. The scene here has stabilized somewhat. The checkpoints are solid. No one is getting through. I'm seeing some family members giving up and leaving. One couple just walked away after about 20 minutes of trying to get information. You could see the defeat in their body language.
This is one of the most difficult aspects of a crisis like this. The uncertainty, the separation from loved ones, the lack of clear answers. For those listening who are in that situation, I want you to know that your feelings are completely valid. Fear, anger, frustration, all of it is justified. What I'm asking is that you channel those emotions into productive actions. Stay informed, follow official guidance, take care of yourself and those immediately around you.
We're receiving word that grocery stores are also seeing increased traffic. Some locations are implementing purchase limits on certain items to prevent hoarding.
What items specifically?
Water, canned goods, medical supplies like masks and gloves, batteries and basic medications. Store managers are asking customers to shop responsibly and consider that their neighbors have the same needs.
Sensible advice. Look, I'm going to be direct with everyone listening. We may be in this situation for a while. The smart approach is measured preparation, not panic. Buy what you need for perhaps a week or two, not a month. Leave supplies for others. We're all in this together, as cliché as that sounds.
I'm moving to a new position to get eyes on the western approach to the hospital. Give me a moment.
Take your time, Michael. Safety first. While Michael repositions, let me share some context about hospital sterilization protocols because I think it's important for people to understand how something like this could happen. Emily has background information on this.
Medical instrument sterilization is typically a multi-step process involving cleaning, disinfection, and sterilization using high heat, steam, or chemical methods. Hospitals have strict protocols governed by federal regulations. Every piece of equipment that contacts a patient's bloodstream or internal tissues must be completely sterile.
So when those protocols fail, what could cause that?
Equipment malfunction is one possibility. Sterilization machines that aren't reaching proper temperatures or pressure levels. Human error is another factor. Someone skipping a step or rushing through procedures. There's also the possibility of contamination after sterilization if instruments aren't stored properly. What makes this situation unusual is the apparent scope. Multiple facilities experiencing similar issues suggests either a widespread technical problem or possibly a systemic failure in training or oversight.
Or deliberate sabotage, though I hate to even suggest that.
Authorities haven't ruled anything out. That's part of what the investigation will determine.
I'm in position on the west side now. I have a clear view of the emergency entrance. There's an ambulance that's been sitting there with its rear doors open for at least 10 minutes. I don't see any movement around it. That's odd.
Could it be waiting for a patient transfer?
Possibly. But usually, there's activity. Personnel, equipment being loaded or unloaded. This vehicle is just sitting there, empty as far as I can tell.
Michael, is the engine running?
I can't tell from this distance, but the lights aren't flashing anymore. It's just parked there like it was abandoned mid-operation.
That's unsettling. Emily, are we getting any reports about ambulance service disruptions?
Nothing official yet, but let me check the emergency services frequencies. Give me a second.
While Emily checks on that, I want to address something I'm sure many of you are wondering. What about the healthcare workers themselves? The doctors, nurses, technicians who are inside these facilities. What's being done to protect them? These are people who showed up to work this morning having no idea they were walking into a biological crisis. They're now on the front lines of something unprecedented.
I have information on that. All personnel in the quarantine facilities are being provided with personal protective equipment. Full isolation protocols are in effect. Healthcare workers are being divided into teams with limited exposure time. They're also being monitored for symptoms and will be among the first to receive any treatment or preventive measures once they're developed.
Once they're developed, that's the key phrase. As of right now, we don't have a treatment for this infection, correct?
That's correct. Treatment is currently supportive, meaning managing symptoms while the body fights the infection, sedation for violent episodes, fluids for dehydration, monitoring for complications. The CDC team includes virologists who are working to identify the pathogen and begin developing targeted therapies.
How long does that typically take?
Under normal circumstances, weeks to months. But these aren't normal circumstances. Emergency protocols can accelerate certain processes. Still, we're looking at days at the absolute minimum before we even have a clear understanding of what we're fighting.
Daniel, that ambulance just moved. Doors closed, and it's leaving the area. Heading south away from the hospital.
Empty?
Appeared to be. No patient visible in the back before the doors closed.
That could be a crew responding to a call elsewhere, or possibly a vehicle being relocated to a clean zone.
Michael, how many emergency vehicles do you see in the area now?
At the hospital itself, I count 3 ambulances still parked at various entrances, 2 fire department units, and probably a dozen police vehicles, not counting the National Guard trucks. In the surrounding streets, I've seen at least 4 more ambulances pass by in the last hour.
So emergency services are still active and responding. That's important for people to know. If you have a medical emergency unrelated to this crisis, help is still available. Don't hesitate to call for assistance.
Though I should mention that response times may be longer than usual, services are stretched thin with this situation.
Understood. The time is now 7:08 p.m. We're about 50 minutes away from the governor's press conference. Before we get there, I want to make sure we've covered all the critical information for our listeners. Let me summarize what we know for certain at this hour.
Daniel, before you do that, I'm getting a priority alert. Stand by.
Go ahead, Emily.
The mayor's office has just announced a citywide curfew beginning at 10 p.m. tonight and extending until 6 a.m. tomorrow. All residents are required to be in their homes unless they're essential workers with proper identification.
A curfew. That's a significant step. Does the announcement provide reasoning?
It states the curfew is to facilitate emergency operations and reduce strain on public safety resources. It also mentions preventing potential civil disturbances.
Civil disturbances. That's carefully worded. They're concerned about panic, looting, that sort of thing?
That would be my interpretation, though the statement doesn't explicitly say that.
So to be clear for everyone listening, as of 10 p.m. tonight, approximately 3 hours from now, you need to be home. If you're at work, start planning your departure to ensure you're back before the curfew takes effect. If you're essential personnel, make sure you have your work identification accessible. Michael, how are you positioned to comply with this curfew?
I'll need to relocate before 10, but I have time. I can continue reporting from different positions for another 2 hours at least.
Do what you need to do to stay safe and legal, Michael. Your reports are valuable but not worth risking your safety or breaking curfew. We can continue coverage from the studio if necessary.
Understood. For now, I'm going to work my way around to the southern perimeter of the hospital. I haven't had eyes on that approach yet.
Keep us posted. Now, let me provide that summary I mentioned. Here's what we know as verified fact at 7:11 p.m. on what is turning into one of the most difficult days our city has faced. A viral infection of unknown origin has affected hundreds of patients across multiple hospitals in our region. The transmission method appears to be contaminated surgical equipment. Symptoms include severe behavioral changes, aggression, confusion, and neurological disturbances. At least 23 medical facilities are under quarantine protocols with National Guard enforcement. The governor has declared a state of emergency. The CDC has deployed response teams. A citywide curfew will take effect at 10 p.m. tonight. A federal quarantine facility has been activated to house infected individuals. And a major press conference is scheduled for 8 p.m. where we expect to learn more about the scope of this crisis and the official response plan.
That's an accurate summary, Daniel. I would add that the emergency hotline, 1-800-555-0147, is available for anyone who believes they may have been exposed or is experiencing symptoms.
Thank you, Emily. Now, what we don't know is equally important. We don't know the exact nature of this pathogen. We don't know how many people may have been exposed. We don't know if the quarantine measures will be sufficient to contain it. We don't know if there are cases in other cities or states beyond our region, and we don't know when normal operations might resume at our hospitals.
We also don't know if there are other contamination vectors beyond surgical equipment. That investigation is ongoing.
Right. The working theory is surgical instruments, but nothing is confirmed absolutely, which brings me to something I think needs to be said. In the absence of complete information, people will fill in the gaps with speculation. Social media is probably already flooded with theories and rumors. I'm asking you, please don't contribute to that noise. Share verified information from official sources. Share our broadcast if you find it helpful. But don't spread unverified claims. In a crisis, misinformation can be as dangerous as the crisis itself.
I'm monitoring several social media platforms, and yes, there's a lot of speculation. Some of it is relatively harmless theorizing, but some of it is actively harmful. Claims about government conspiracies, foreign attacks, divine punishment, none of it is helping.
Human nature in a crisis. We want explanations, especially when we're frightened. But the explanation we want isn't always the explanation that's true. Sometimes a crisis is just a crisis. A terrible convergence of circumstances without a sinister plot behind it.
Daniel, I'm at the south side now. Very different scene here. This entrance appears to be for staff only, and it's completely sealed. No vehicles, no personnel visible outside. But I can see movement through the windows on the ground floor. People in protective equipment moving with purpose.
That's likely where the real work is happening. Away from public view, medical teams trying to understand and manage this situation.
There's something else. I'm hearing sounds from inside the building. It's faint, but it sounds like shouting.
Michael, that could be infected patients. From the reports we've received, the behavioral symptoms include vocal outbursts.
It's disturbing to hear even from out here. Reminds you that these are real people suffering, not just statistics.
That's an important point, Michael. Every number we cite represents a human being. Someone's parent, child, spouse, friend. A person who went to the hospital for help and instead became a victim of this outbreak. The tragedy of that is profound.
Daniel, we're getting more data on the geographic distribution of cases. It's not just our city. Reports are now confirmed from 3 neighboring states, cases in at least 8 cities.
So this is regional, possibly national. Emily, do we have numbers from those other locations?
Fragmentary information. One city is reporting 70-plus cases. Another has confirmed 30. The total picture is still emerging.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we're learning is that this situation extends beyond our immediate area. This is a multi-state health crisis. That changes the calculus significantly. It means more resources, but also more complexity in the response. It means the federal government will be taking a lead role in coordination.
The president is scheduled to address the nation at 9 p.m. That's been added to the announcement schedule.
After the governor's conference, then, we'll carry both broadcasts live. Michael, are you still in position?
Yes, still at the south entrance. The sounds from inside have quieted down. I think they may have sedated whoever was shouting. It's strange standing here looking at this building. From the outside it looks normal, just another hospital. But knowing what's happening inside creates this surreal disconnect.
I imagine that's true at all these facilities. To passers-by who don't know what's happening, they just look like hospitals. Maybe a bit more security than usual, but otherwise normal. Meanwhile, inside, medical staff are fighting to contain an outbreak and care for patients who are suffering from something we barely understand.
Daniel, I want to mention something that might provide some reassurance to listeners. The infection appears to require direct exposure to contaminated equipment. It's not airborne as far as we know. That means casual contact, being in the same room as an infected person, that doesn't appear to transmit the virus.
That is significant, Emily. So if your neighbor or coworker was recently in the hospital, you're not at risk just from being near them, correct?
Correct, based on current understanding. The risk comes from having had a medical procedure where instruments contacted your internal tissues or bloodstream. If you haven't had surgery or invasive procedures in the past week, your risk is minimal.
That should ease some fears. Though I'm sure there are still many worried people whose loved ones did have procedures recently. Emily, is there any guidance for family members of potentially exposed individuals?
The guidance is to monitor for symptoms and maintain contact with the person. If symptoms develop, call the emergency hotline immediately. Don't attempt to physically restrain someone who becomes aggressive. Don't put yourself at risk. Get professional help.
I'm seeing another convoy approaching the hospital. This one is coming from the north. Looks like supply trucks, 3 of them, with military escort.
Bringing in equipment and supplies to sustain the quarantine, most likely.
The trucks are stopping at a loading dock on the east wing. Personnel are beginning to unload. I can see crates and containers of various sizes. Definitely a major resupply operation.
That suggests authorities are planning for an extended quarantine period. You don't bring in that volume of supplies unless you're expecting to be there for a while.
Which means we need to be prepared for this situation to continue for days, possibly weeks. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear, but realistic expectations are important. This isn't going to be resolved overnight.
Daniel, we're receiving an updated patient count. The number is now 578 confirmed cases across all monitored facilities in our region.
That's an increase of nearly 150 in the last half hour. The identification and reporting process is accelerating.
Or the infection is spreading among already hospitalized patients. That's another possibility.
Within the hospitals themselves, patient-to-patient transmission?
If infected individuals are in close quarters with others, and there's any bodily fluid contact, yes, that could be happening. The quarantine protocols are partly designed to prevent that.
This is getting worse before it gets better. I think we all understood that intellectually, but seeing the numbers climb in real time brings it home.
The supply trucks are being unloaded quickly. Military efficiency. I count at least a dozen personnel working in coordinated fashion. Everything is being brought inside within minutes.
Michael, any sense of what's in those containers?
Can't tell specifically. Some are clearly marked with medical symbols. Others are plain containers. Could be food, water, medical equipment, pharmaceuticals. Everything a quarantined hospital would need.
The supply chain logistics for something like this are incredibly complex. You're essentially creating self-sufficient islands out of these hospitals. Every need has to be met from outside since nothing can leave.
Including waste removal, I imagine. Contaminated materials have to be handled with extreme care.
There are protocols for that. Incineration, chemical treatment, specially designated disposal teams. It's all part of the biohazard containment procedures.
The scope of this operation is staggering when you think about it. The coordination required, the personnel, the resources, and it's happening simultaneously at 24 facilities just in our area, with more across multiple states.
The trucks are empty now and departing. That was a fast operation, maybe 10 minutes total. The loading dock is being sealed again.
Precision and speed. They know what they're doing. Michael, I want you to start thinking about relocating soon. That curfew is coming up and I don't want you caught in transit.
I'll give it another 30 minutes and then start heading back. I should be able to make it well before 10.
Daniel, there's a report coming through about one of the smaller urgent care facilities, Riverside Urgent Care on Martin Street. They're requesting emergency transport for multiple patients showing symptoms.
Riverside, that's in the western suburbs, correct?
Yes, about 12 miles from downtown. This is concerning because it's a smaller facility without the resources of a major hospital. They're not equipped for this kind of situation.
Are they part of the quarantine zone?
Not yet, but I imagine they will be shortly. The request for transport suggests they want to move these patients to a larger facility with better containment capabilities.
Which is the right move if they can do it safely. Emily, are we getting any information about how many healthcare workers have been infected?
That data is not being released publicly yet, but I've seen one internal memo that suggests at least 37 medical staff across all facilities have developed symptoms.
37. These are people who were trying to help, who were doing their jobs, and they became victims themselves.
It's a reminder of the risks healthcare workers face every day, especially in a crisis like this. They don't have the option to stay home and avoid exposure. They have to be there.
And we owe them an enormous debt of gratitude. If you're a healthcare worker listening to this, thank you. I know that probably sounds inadequate given what you're facing, but it's heartfelt.
I'm repositioning one more time to get a final overview of the entire hospital complex before I leave the area, moving to higher ground about a block to the east.
Be careful, Michael. We're at 7:31 now. The press conference is less than 30 minutes away. Let's use this time to answer some of the questions I'm sure listeners have. Emily, what are people asking about most frequently in the messages and calls you're tracking?
The most common question is whether this could affect water supplies or food. People are worried about contamination beyond the hospitals.
And what's the answer to that?
There's no evidence of any contamination in municipal water systems or food supplies. This appears to be strictly limited to medical equipment at healthcare facilities. Drinking water is safe, food is safe, normal precautions apply, but there's no reason for alarm about those essentials.
Good. What else are people asking?
Many questions about travel. Should people leave the city? Are roads being closed? Are airports still operating?
Those are practical concerns. What information do we have?
Roads remain open currently, though there are increased checkpoints in some areas. The airport is still operating, but several airlines have canceled flights. The advice from authorities is to stay put unless you have an essential reason to travel. Moving around during a crisis can complicate response efforts.
That makes sense. If everyone tries to flee at once, you create traffic jams, accidents, and you spread potential exposure over a wider area. The smartest thing most people can do is stay home, stay informed, and follow instructions.
I'm at my elevated position now. I have a clear view of the entire hospital campus. The perimeter security is comprehensive. No gaps that I can see. Whatever is happening inside, stays inside.
That's the goal of the quarantine. Michael, from your vantage point, can you see any of the other quarantined facilities?
Negative, not from here. But I can see the city skyline, and there's something noticeable. Fewer lights than usual. Either some buildings have lost power, or people are conserving energy.
We haven't received any reports of power outages, so it's likely people are taking precautions, staying dark, trying not to draw attention.
Fear makes people do strange things sometimes. Turning off lights doesn't protect you from a virus, but it might make you feel more secure. I understand the impulse.
Daniel, we're 5 minutes from the governor's press conference. We should prepare to go live with that.
Agreed. Michael, we're going to switch our full attention to the press conference in a few minutes. Are you good to continue observing independently?
Affirmative. I'll monitor the situation here and report back if anything significant develops. Otherwise, I'll begin my relocation in about 20 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Your reporting has been invaluable. All right, listeners, we're about to bring you live coverage of the governor's address. This will be the first comprehensive official statement since this crisis began. We expect to hear details about the state's response plan, resources being deployed, and guidance for the public. Emily and I will provide context and analysis after the conference concludes. The time is now 7:36 p.m. Stay with us.
Daniel, I'm getting the feed ready. We should have the connection in just a moment.
While we wait for that, let me remind everyone that what you're about to hear is the official state government position on this crisis. It will be carefully worded, probably somewhat reassuring in tone, and will contain information designed to keep the public calm and cooperative. That's not a criticism, it's just the nature of official communications during emergencies. Our job after the conference will be to help you understand what was said and what it means in practical terms.
The feed is live. We're connected to the state capitol press room.
We're taking you now to the governor's press conference.
Daniel, the governor is approaching the podium now. There are several officials with him. Looks like the health commissioner, maybe some federal representatives.
I'm seeing the CDC emblem on some of those jackets. This is a coordinated state and federal presentation.
The governor is beginning to speak. Audio is clear.
For those listening, the governor is standing at a podium with about 8 or 9 officials behind him. The room appears to be the main press briefing room at the Capitol. I can see reporters in the audience, cameras, the usual setup for a major announcement. The governor looks composed but serious. He's consulting notes as he begins.
He's acknowledging the severity of the situation, confirming the declaration of a state of emergency, mentioning the coordination with federal agencies.
Now he's providing numbers, saying there are over 600 confirmed cases across the state. That's higher than our last update.
He's explaining the quarantine protocols, why hospitals have been locked down, the reasoning behind the National Guard deployment.
He's emphasizing that this is a containment measure, not a military action, trying to reassure people that this isn't martial law.
Now he's introducing the health commissioner. She's stepping forward.
The health commissioner is a woman in her 50s, professional demeanor, clearly experienced in public health crises based on her body language. She's not reading from notes, speaking directly to the camera.
She's explaining the medical aspects, describing the symptoms we've already covered, confirming the transmission vector as contaminated surgical equipment.
She's being specific about the timeline, says the first cases were identified 3 days ago but weren't recognized as a pattern until yesterday. That explains why the response seems sudden. They've been investigating quietly before going public.
She's addressing the question of origin, says the investigation is ongoing, but they believe it may be a mutation of a known pathogen, mentions several possibilities but doesn't commit to a specific identification.
That's interesting. A mutation rather than something entirely new. That could mean faster development of treatment if they can identify the base pathogen.
The CDC representative is speaking now, confirming that rapid response teams are deployed in multiple cities, says they're coordinating with state and local health departments.
He's talking about research efforts. Samples have been collected and sent to several labs, including the main CDC facility in Atlanta. Analysis is underway. They're working around the clock.
He's being asked a question by a reporter. Can't quite make out the question, but it's about timeline for a cure or vaccine.
His answer is cautious. Says it's too early to project timelines. Emphasizes that understanding the pathogen is the first step. Treatment protocols will follow. Vaccine development would take considerably longer.
Another question from the press, this one about whether there's been any communication from the infected patients, whether they're conscious and coherent.
That's a good question. The health commissioner is answering. She says most patients experience periods of lucidity alternating with episodes of acute confusion and aggression. In lucid moments, some are able to communicate, but many don't remember their aggressive episodes. That's consistent with certain types of encephalitis or brain inflammation.
The governor is back at the microphone. He's addressing the economic impact now, says the state is working with business leaders to minimize disruption, acknowledges that many people are worried about their jobs, their income.
He's announcing an emergency fund to help workers affected by closures or reduced hours, trying to address the economic fears that go hand in hand with a health crisis.
Now he's talking about the curfew, explaining the reasoning, asking for cooperation, says it's temporary and will be reassessed daily.
He's taking another question. A reporter asking about the possibility of expanding the curfew to other cities in the state beyond ours.
The governor says that's being evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Each city's situation is different. Some may implement curfews, others may not need to.
The CDC rep is adding something, says that the geographic concentration of cases currently doesn't justify a nationwide lockdown or anything that extreme. This is a regional situation for now.
For now, that qualifier is important.
Very important. He's not ruling out escalation if the situation changes. The health commissioner is speaking again. She's providing guidance for the public, essentially repeating what we've been telling our listeners. Monitor for symptoms, call the hotline if concerned, don't go to hospitals unless absolutely necessary.
She's emphasizing that last point, says the emergency rooms are overwhelmed and people with minor issues should stay home. Only life-threatening emergencies should result in hospital visits right now.
That's critical guidance. The healthcare system is strained and can't handle non-emergency traffic on top of this crisis.
The governor is wrapping up, thanking the healthcare workers, first responders, National Guard, asking the public to stay strong and united.
Standard closing, but the sentiment is genuine. He looks tired. This is clearly weighing on everyone involved.
The press conference is concluding. Officials are leaving the podium. That was about 22 minutes total.
All right, we're back. That was the governor's press conference, and we learned several important things. Let me break down the key points. First, the official case count is now over 600 statewide, with our city and surrounding metro area being the epicenter. Second, this outbreak has been under investigation for at least 3 days, longer than the public knew. Third, the pathogen may be a mutation of something known which could speed up treatment development. Fourth, infected patients have moments of lucidity but don't always remember their aggressive episodes, suggesting the virus affects brain function in specific ways. Fifth, the economic impact is being addressed with emergency funds. And sixth, this is currently considered a regional crisis, not a national one, though that could change.
I'd add that the emphasis on not overwhelming emergency rooms is significant. They're really concerned about healthcare system capacity.
Absolutely. The last thing they need is worried people with no symptoms flooding hospitals and potentially exposing themselves unnecessarily. Emily, what was your overall impression of that press conference?
Relatively transparent, which I appreciate. They didn't sugarcoat the severity, but also didn't catastrophize. The acknowledgement that they've been investigating for days might frustrate some people who feel information was withheld, but I understand the need to gather facts before going public.
I agree. It's a balance between informing the public and preventing panic. If they'd announced this 3 days ago with minimal information, it might have caused more problems. Now they can at least provide some context and response plans. Let's check in with Michael. Michael, are you still in position?
I am. I heard the press conference over my radio. Nothing has changed at the hospital during the last half hour. Perimeter secure, occasional vehicle movement, otherwise stable.
Are you preparing to relocate?
Yes, I'll be moving out in about 5 minutes. I want to get ahead of any curfew-related traffic.
Smart thinking. Travel safe and check in when you're clear.
Will do. Before I go, I want to mention one thing I've noticed. The sounds from inside the hospital have changed. Earlier there was shouting, agitation. Now it's quieter, but there's a mechanical hum that wasn't there before. Sounds like heavy-duty ventilation or filtration systems running.
That would make sense if they've activated biohazard air handling, negative pressure systems to prevent any airborne particles from escaping the building.
Even though the virus isn't believed to be airborne, they're taking every precaution. That's reassuring in its way.
All right, I'm packing up my equipment and heading out. I'll report back when I reach a secure location.
Thank you, Michael. Drive carefully. We'll continue coverage from the studio. The time is now 8:02 p.m. and we're expecting the presidential address in just under an hour. Before we get to that, I want to open up our understanding of what's happening medically. Emily has been researching similar outbreaks and pathogens. Emily, what historical context can you provide?
There have been several instances of hospital-acquired infections causing outbreaks, though nothing quite like this in terms of behavioral symptoms. The closest parallel might be certain cases of viral encephalitis, which can cause inflammation of the brain leading to personality changes, aggression, and confusion.
What viruses cause that kind of encephalitis?
Several. Herpes simplex virus can do it. West Nile virus, Japanese encephalitis, even some enteroviruses. The key is that the virus crosses the blood-brain barrier and directly affects neural tissue.
And if this is a mutation of one of those?
Then researchers have a starting point. They understand the mechanisms, the treatment approaches, the progression. A mutation could make it more aggressive or change the symptom profile, but the fundamental biology might be familiar.
That's encouraging. Starting from zero with a completely unknown pathogen would be far more challenging.
Exactly. Even if it's a mutation that makes existing treatments less effective, having that baseline knowledge accelerates the research process.
Let's talk about what our listeners should be doing right now. It's just after 8 p.m. on what has been an exhausting and frightening day. Many people are probably at home, doors locked, wondering what happens next. What practical advice can we offer?
First, maintain your routine as much as possible. If you're not infected, if you haven't been exposed, going about normal activities within your home provides stability. Eat regular meals, stick to sleep schedules, stay connected with family and friends remotely.
Good advice. The psychological impact of a crisis can be as damaging as the physical threat if we let fear control us.
Second, limit your news consumption. Stay informed, but don't spend all day obsessing over every update. Check for official information a few times a day, but give yourself breaks. Constant exposure to crisis news increases anxiety without providing additional useful information.
That's wise. And I know it might seem ironic coming from someone broadcasting crisis news, but it's true. You don't need to listen to us for 12 straight hours. Get the key updates and then live your life.
Third, take care of your physical health. Exercise if you can, even if it's just walking around your home. Eat well, stay hydrated. Your immune system functions better when you're taking care of your body.
All solid recommendations. I'll add one more. If you have children, be honest with them in age-appropriate ways. Kids pick up on fear and tension even if you try to hide it. Giving them accurate, calm information helps them feel more secure than leaving them to their imagination.
That's important. Children need reassurance and routine even more than adults.
Emily, we're getting close to the curfew deadline. Are we seeing any reports of people having trouble getting home?
Traffic appears normal, maybe slightly heavier than usual for this time of evening. People are heeding the curfew warning and leaving work or errands early. No major incidents reported yet.
That's good. Compliance will make this easier for everyone. Michael, have you checked in yet?
Just arriving at my secure location now. Made it with plenty of time. Traffic was moving well.
Excellent. Where are you positioned now?
I'm at the studio's backup facility in the Northern District. Secure building, full communications equipment. I can monitor multiple feeds from here and continue providing support remotely.
Perfect. We're glad to have you safe and still connected. From this point forward, Michael will be providing analysis and research support while Emily and I continue the live broadcast. Michael, can you start compiling information about the other affected cities? I'd like to give our listeners a sense of the broader picture.
On it. I'll have that ready before the presidential address.
Daniel, I'm seeing an update about the Riverside urgent care situation we mentioned earlier. The facility has been successfully evacuated. All patients and staff were transported to the federal quarantine facility without incident.
That's a relief. How many individuals were involved?
17 patients and 12 staff members. All are now in isolation and being monitored.
So Riverside is now empty?
And sealed. It's being treated as a contaminated site until decontamination teams can thoroughly clean it.
These decontamination procedures, how extensive are they?
Extremely. Every surface, every piece of equipment, complete sterilization using chemical agents and sometimes controlled heat. The facility will be shut down for days at minimum.
Which means one less urgent care center available for the community. The ripple effects of this crisis are going to touch every aspect of life.
We're already seeing it. Clinics closed, surgeries canceled, routine care delayed. Even facilities that aren't directly affected are taking precautions and reducing services.
Out of an abundance of caution, understandable but problematic for people with ongoing medical needs.
Daniel, I have that information you requested. I'm seeing confirmed cases in 17 cities across 9 states. The total count nationally is approaching 2,000 individuals.
2,000. That's significantly higher than just our region.
Yes, this is a multi-state outbreak. The cities reporting cases are spread across the Midwest and South primarily, with a few cases reported on the West Coast as well.
Is there a pattern to the locations? Any connection between the cities?
I'm looking for that. Give me a moment to analyze the data.
While Michael works on that, let me remind our listeners that we're about 40 minutes away from hearing from the president. This will be a national address, so the tone and content will be different from the governor's press conference. The president will be speaking to the entire country, most of whom are not directly affected by this crisis yet. The challenge will be to take the situation seriously while not causing nationwide panic.
I imagine there will also be discussion of federal resources, interstate coordination, maybe economic measures.
Almost certainly. The federal government has capabilities that states can't match individually. If this situation requires a coordinated national response, we'll hear about it from the president.
I found something interesting in the data. All of the affected cities have one thing in common. They all use medical equipment and sterilization services from the same group of suppliers. There's a company called MedTech Solutions that provides sterilization equipment and services to hospitals across multiple states. Nearly every facility reporting infections used their equipment or services within the past 2 weeks.
That's a significant finding, Michael. Has this been reported elsewhere?
Not that I can see. I connected the dots by cross-referencing hospital supply contracts with case locations. It might be coincidence, but it's a strong correlation.
If it's not coincidence, that means we're looking at either faulty equipment or contaminated supplies from a centralized source.
Which would explain the multi-state spread. One supplier, multiple clients, contamination spreads everywhere at once.
Should we report this? It's not confirmed by officials.
It's a good question. Emily, what do you think?
We can mention the correlation without making definitive claims. Say that analysts have noticed a pattern and investigations are ongoing. Don't accuse the company directly, but put the information out there.
I agree. All right, here's what we know. Multiple analysts have identified a potential pattern in the outbreak. Many of the affected hospitals across different states share a common supplier for sterilization equipment and services. A company called MedTech Solutions appears frequently in the supply chains of facilities reporting infections. This could be coincidental, but it's worth noting as investigations continue. If there is a connection, it could help authorities pinpoint the source of contamination and prevent further spread.
Well stated. Factual without being inflammatory.
I'm going to dig deeper into MedTech Solutions, see what else I can find about their operations, any past issues, regulatory history.
Good work, Michael. Keep us posted on what you find. The time is now 8:23 p.m. We're approaching the curfew deadline in just over half an hour. For those listening, if you're not already home, you need to be heading there now. Don't wait until the last minute. Give yourself time to get settled safely.
I'm monitoring police frequencies and they're preparing for curfew enforcement. Officers are being positioned at major intersections and key routes. They're not expecting major problems, but they're ready to respond if anyone violates the curfew.
What are the penalties for curfew violation?
According to the emergency declaration, it can range from a warning for first-time minor violations up to arrest for repeated or flagrant violations. The emphasis seems to be on compliance rather than punishment, but they will enforce if necessary.
So take it seriously, folks. This isn't a suggestion, it's a legal requirement. The curfew is in place for legitimate public safety reasons.
Daniel, we're getting reports of increased activity at several grocery stores and pharmacies, people making last-minute runs before the curfew.
That's predictable but not ideal. Those workers need to get home too. If you don't have urgent needs, wait until tomorrow. Stores will reopen in the morning after the curfew lifts.
I'm seeing news that several major retailers are announcing modified hours starting tomorrow, opening later, closing earlier, to accommodate curfew restrictions and give employees time to travel safely.
That makes sense. Businesses will adapt to the new reality, at least temporarily.
Everything is temporary right now. We're in a fluid situation where conditions can change rapidly. What's true today might not be true tomorrow. That's why staying informed through reliable sources is so critical.
We're 20 minutes from the presidential address. Do we have any preview of what the president will say?
The White House released a brief statement saying the president will address the medical crisis, outline federal response measures, and provide guidance for the American people. No specific details beyond that.
Standard preview. We'll learn the substance when we hear the address. In the meantime, let's check in on the situation at the quarantined hospitals. Emily, are we getting any updates from those locations?
Limited information. The facilities are locked down tight, and communication is being controlled. What we know is that medical teams are working to stabilize patients, researchers are collecting samples, and security is maintaining the perimeters. Beyond that, it's mostly speculation.
The information blackout is probably intentional. They don't want real-time updates on potentially disturbing situations leaking out and causing panic.
Agreed. Once they have a full assessment and a clear plan, they'll share more information. Until then, we get carefully curated updates.
I can't really fault that approach in a crisis like this. Transparency is important, but so is preventing panic. It's a difficult balance.
I found more information on MedTech Solutions. They're a major player in the medical equipment industry, contracts with over 300 hospitals in 20 states, annual revenue in the hundreds of millions. They've been in business for about 15 years.
Any history of problems or violations?
I'm seeing a few minor citations from regulatory agencies over the years. Paperwork issues, delayed reporting, things like that. Nothing that suggests a major systemic problem, until potentially now.
If they're the source of the contamination, the legal and financial implications are going to be enormous. We're talking lawsuits, possibly criminal charges, bankruptcy.
And that's if it's their fault. It could be sabotage, terrorism, something beyond their control. We simply don't know yet.
True. I'm not trying to accuse them, just following the data.
And that's exactly what investigators will be doing. Following evidence wherever it leads. Michael, can you pull up any information about their sterilization processes? How their equipment works? What could go wrong?
I'll research that. Might take a few minutes to find technical details.
While Michael does that, I want to mention something I've been noticing in the social media chatter. There's a growing conspiracy theory that this is a deliberately engineered bioweapon.
That's unfortunately predictable. Every major crisis spawns conspiracy theories. What's the supposed reasoning behind this one?
Various claims. Some say it's a foreign attack. Others claim it's a domestic plot by pharmaceutical companies to create demand for treatments. Some even suggest it's related to population control, the usual paranoid fantasies.
And zero evidence for any of it, I assume?
Correct. Pure speculation based on fear and mistrust. But these theories spread fast on social media, and they complicate the response when people start believing them.
This is exactly what I meant earlier about misinformation being dangerous. When people start thinking this is a deliberate attack rather than an outbreak, they make different decisions. They might distrust authorities, refuse treatment, take matters into their own hands in harmful ways.
I've seen posts encouraging people to arm themselves, to form militia groups, to resist government directives. It's dangerous rhetoric.
It absolutely is, and I want to speak directly to anyone listening who might be tempted by those conspiracy theories. Think critically about the claims being made. Ask yourself what evidence supports them. Consider whether a massive conspiracy involving thousands of people across multiple organizations and governments could really stay secret. The simplest explanation that this is an unfortunate outbreak resulting from equipment contamination doesn't require believing in elaborate plots. Sometimes terrible things happen without evil intentions behind them.
Well said. I think a lot of conspiracy thinking comes from a desire to make sense of chaos. It's more comfortable to believe someone is in control, even if that someone is malevolent, than to accept that random chance can cause suffering.
Human psychology in crisis. We want explanations, patterns, reasons. The truth is often messier and less satisfying than a good conspiracy theory.
I have information on the sterilization processes. MedTech Solutions primarily uses autoclaves, which are high-pressure steam sterilization chambers. Surgical instruments are placed inside, subjected to high temperature and pressure for a specific duration, which kills microorganisms including bacteria, viruses, and spores.
So what could go wrong with that process?
Several possibilities. Equipment malfunction where temperature or pressure doesn't reach adequate levels. Improper loading of instruments so some areas don't get full exposure to steam. Contamination after sterilization during storage or transport. Human error in operating the equipment or following protocols. Or, as we mentioned, deliberate sabotage.
Any of those could result in contaminated instruments being used on patients.
And if the same problem affected equipment at multiple facilities served by the same company, you'd get the pattern we're seeing.
Exactly. One compromised autoclave at a central processing facility could contaminate instruments for dozens of hospitals.
That's a terrifying thought. One point of failure with massive consequences.
It's also a reminder of how interconnected our systems are. Centralization creates efficiency but also vulnerability. One problem spreads everywhere instantly.
We're 10 minutes from the presidential address. We should prepare to transition to that coverage.
Agreed. Let me give a quick update for anyone just tuning in. The time is 8:50 p.m. We are continuing live coverage of the ongoing medical crisis affecting multiple states. Over 2,000 people have been infected with a virus that causes severe behavioral disturbances. Hospitals are under quarantine. A citywide curfew is in effect starting at 10 p.m., and we're about to hear from the President of the United States. Stay with us for live coverage and analysis.
I'm ready with background research to provide context during and after the address.
I have the video feed ready to go. We'll be able to carry the audio live.
Perfect. While we wait these last few minutes, I want to acknowledge how difficult this day has been for everyone. The uncertainty, the fear, the disruption to normal life, these are legitimate responses to an extraordinary situation. Whatever you're feeling right now, it's valid. Don't judge yourself for being scared or anxious. Just try to channel those emotions into productive actions. Stay informed. Follow safety guidelines. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.
And remember that you're not alone. Millions of people are going through the same experience. We're all trying to navigate an unprecedented crisis together.
Well said, Emily. We're in this together, as cliché as that phrase has become. It's true. This situation affects all of us, and we'll get through it together.
The White House feed is starting. I see the presidential seal on screen.
Here we go. We're taking you now to the president's address to the nation.
The president is entering the Oval Office, formal setting, seated at the desk. This is a serious tone, not a press room briefing.
Body language is composed but grave. The president understands the weight of this moment.
Beginning to speak now, audio is clear.
Opening remarks acknowledging the crisis, expressing sympathy for those affected and gratitude for healthcare workers and first responders.
Now providing an overview of the situation, confirming the multi-state nature of the outbreak, giving numbers slightly higher than what we last reported, over 2,200 cases now.
The number keeps climbing. That's 200 more than Michael's last count just 30 minutes ago.
The president is explaining the federal response. FEMA has been activated. CDC is leading the medical investigation. The Department of Health and Human Services is coordinating with state agencies.
Mentioning the deployment of National Guard units in multiple states, emphasizing that this is a support role, not a takeover of local authority.
Now addressing economic concerns, announcing emergency funding for affected states, suspension of certain federal regulations to speed up response efforts, support for workers and businesses impacted by closures.
That's significant. Regulatory flexibility can accelerate things like drug development and resource deployment.
The president is being asked about travel restrictions. This must be a question submitted in advance.
Answering that there are currently no plans for nationwide travel bans. The situation is regional and doesn't justify that level of restriction yet, but all options remain on the table if conditions change.
Again with the qualifiers, if conditions change, if the situation worsens, keeping options open.
It's the right approach. Don't overreact now, but don't rule out stronger measures if needed.
Now the president is speaking directly to the American people, urging calm, rationality, unity, asking people to trust in the response systems and not give in to fear.
Acknowledging that fear is natural, but emphasizing that panicking helps no one. Encouraging people to look out for neighbors and community members.
Mentioning the importance of following local guidance, respecting curfews and quarantines, supporting healthcare workers.
Standard crisis communication, but delivered with apparent sincerity. The president seems genuinely concerned, not just reading talking points.
Closing remarks now, promising that the government is doing everything possible to resolve this crisis, expressing confidence in American resilience and the ability to overcome this challenge.
And the address is concluding. That was about 14 minutes total. Shorter than some presidential addresses, but covered the key points.
The feed is ending. We're back to studio coverage.
All right, we've now heard from both the governor and the president today. Let's analyze what we learned. The federal government is fully engaged with this crisis. FEMA is involved, which brings substantial resources and coordination capabilities. The CDC is leading the medical investigation, which is their role in any infectious disease outbreak. Economic support is being provided, which addresses one of the major public concerns. Travel restrictions are not currently planned, which suggests confidence that this can be contained regionally. And the overall message was one of serious concern but not catastrophe. Michael, your analysis.
I think the most significant element was the regulatory flexibility announcement. If that means the FDA can expedite approval processes for treatments or vaccines, it could shave weeks or months off development timelines. That could be the difference between a prolonged crisis and a manageable situation.
Good point, Emily.
I was struck by the absence of specific timelines. The president didn't say when we might expect a treatment, when quarantines might lift, when life might return to normal. That's probably because they genuinely don't know, but it also leaves a lot of uncertainty for people trying to plan their lives.
True, though providing false timelines would be worse than providing none. At least this way, expectations aren't being set that can't be met.
Agreed. It's just hard for people who want concrete answers.
It's hard for all of us. I want concrete answers too, but we're going to have to live with uncertainty for a while. That's the reality of this situation.
Daniel, I'm seeing reports that the curfew deadline is being strictly enforced. Officers are stopping vehicles and checking credentials. A few people have been turned back for non-essential travel.
So they're serious about enforcement. Good to know. The time is now 9:06 p.m., less than an hour until curfew. If you're listening and you're not home yet, you need to be moving now.
I'm also seeing that the curfew has been implemented in 6 other cities across 3 states. It's expanding beyond just our region.
As the crisis spreads, so do the control measures. That's logical. Michael, have case numbers increased in those other cities?
Yes, several are reporting accelerating case counts. The city of Riverside, in the neighboring state, now has over 200 confirmed cases, up from about 50 this morning.
A 4-fold increase in less than 12 hours. That's rapid progression.
It matches the pattern we saw here: slow identification at first, then a surge as medical staff become aware and start recognizing symptoms.
Or actual spread within hospital populations. We still don't know if patient-to-patient transmission is occurring.
The CDC hasn't confirmed human-to-human transmission yet. All documented cases can be traced to contaminated equipment exposure.
But that doesn't mean it's not happening, just that it hasn't been confirmed. The quarantine suggests authorities are concerned about that possibility.
Absolutely. You don't lock down entire hospitals if you're certain the infection can't spread between people. The quarantines are precautionary at minimum, or reactive to suspected transmission at worst.
Daniel, we're receiving word that several major news networks are requesting permission to embed reporters inside the quarantine facilities. They want to document conditions and treatment efforts.
That's a bold request. I doubt authorities will approve it. The risk of media personnel becoming infected and the logistics of supporting them inside a quarantine zone seem prohibitive.
The requests are being denied, as you predicted. Officials are saying that media access would compromise safety protocols and divert resources from patient care.
I understand the media's desire for access and the public's right to information, but I think that's the right call in this case. The priority has to be medical care, not documentation.
There are some internal photos and videos that have leaked on social media. Healthcare workers sharing glimpses of conditions inside the facilities.
What are they showing?
Overwhelmed staff, crowded isolation wards, patients in restraints. It's disturbing imagery. Some of the videos show infected individuals in acute distress, violent and incoherent.
That's exactly why authorities don't want media inside. Those images are frightening and could cause panic without proper context.
Though I'd argue people have a right to understand the reality of what's happening, even if it's frightening. Sanitizing the crisis doesn't help anyone make informed decisions.
There's a balance. Full transparency versus responsible communication. It's not easy to find the right line.
No, it's not. And reasonable people can disagree about where that line should be. I lean toward more information rather than less, but I also recognize the risks of unfiltered, uncontextualized imagery spreading on social media.
Speaking of social media, I'm seeing an organized effort to compile information about missing persons. People who were in hospitals and haven't been heard from since the quarantines began.
That's understandable. Families are desperate for information about their loved ones.
The problem is that hospital communications are limited. Many facilities aren't able to provide individualized updates about patients. The phone systems are overwhelmed, and staff are focused on medical care.
So families are in this awful limbo. They know their loved one is in a quarantine hospital, but they don't know if that person is infected, being treated, or even alive.
That's an intolerable situation, but I'm not sure what the solution is in the short term. Hospitals are in crisis mode. Patient updates aren't the top priority when you're trying to prevent an outbreak from spreading.
Could they set up a dedicated communication system? Assign staff specifically to family notifications?
That would require personnel and resources that are currently being directed toward medical care. It's a triage situation. Save lives first, communicate later.
As harsh as that sounds, it's probably the right medical priority, though I ache for the families left wondering.
We're 35 minutes from curfew. Should we start wrapping up some of our coverage or continue through the curfew deadline?
We'll continue broadcasting. The curfew applies to people being out in public, not to radio broadcasts or people working in secure facilities. We're authorized essential workers for the purposes of this emergency, but we should acknowledge the curfew for our listeners.
Understood.
The time is 9:25 p.m. In 35 minutes, the citywide curfew takes effect. All residents must be in their homes unless they are essential workers with proper identification. This curfew is a legal requirement under the state of emergency declaration. Violators can face penalties including fines and possible arrest. Please take this seriously and comply. Emily, Michael, and I will continue broadcasting throughout the night to keep you informed, but you need to be safe at home.
I'm seeing increased police presence on traffic cameras throughout the city. Officers are positioning themselves at major intersections in preparation for curfew enforcement.
Are the streets clearing out?
Yes, noticeably less traffic than usual for this time of evening. People are complying.
That's good. Cooperation makes everything easier. Let's talk about what happens overnight. Obviously, we'll be here broadcasting. What should listeners expect in terms of updates and information flow?
Overnight, official communications will likely slow down. Most government offices operate on daytime schedules, but emergency services continue 24 hours. We'll monitor all available channels and report any significant developments immediately.
So it might be a quieter night in terms of new information, but we'll be here if anything breaks. Michael, will you be monitoring remotely, or are you planning to rest at some point?
I'll take a break in a few hours if things stay stable, but I have alerts set up to notify me of any major developments. I can be back online within minutes if needed.
Take care of yourself, Michael. This could be a marathon, not a sprint. Emily and I will rotate through the night to make sure someone is always on air.
I'm set up to work until about 2 a.m. Then my colleague Sarah will take over for the overnight shift.
Perfect. So listeners should know that you'll have continuous coverage. If you wake up in the middle of the night and need information, we'll be here.
Daniel, we're receiving an update about the MedTech Solutions situation. Federal investigators have arrived at their headquarters and main processing facility.
When did that happen?
Within the last hour, the company is cooperating fully according to the statement. All equipment and records are being examined.
That's fast work. The correlation between their services and the outbreak locations must have been noticed by official investigators too.
I'm looking at the company's stock price. It's collapsed, down over 60% in after-hours trading.
Investors are panicking. If the company is found liable, they could face billions in damages.
And potentially criminal charges if there was negligence. But we don't know anything yet. Let's not convict them prematurely.
Fair point. I'm just reporting the market reaction.
Which is probably overdone based on speculation rather than facts. But that's how markets work in crisis situations.
We're 20 minutes from curfew. I'm monitoring emergency services, and there are no major issues being reported. A few minor traffic accidents, usual city problems, but nothing crisis-related.
The calm before the storm, or maybe just actual calm? Hard to know which.
I'm seeing reports from other cities that implemented curfews earlier today. Generally smooth compliance. A few isolated incidents of people refusing to go home, but nothing widespread.
People understand the seriousness when it's explained clearly and enforced consistently. Most folks will do the right thing.
There's something to be said for clear rules in a crisis. Ambiguity creates anxiety. When you know exactly what's expected, it's easier to comply.
Absolutely. One of the challenges in the early stages of this crisis was the lack of clear guidance. Stay home or go to work, avoid hospitals or seek care, stock up or shop normally. Now at least there are definite rules, even if they're restrictive.
The quarantine facility at Whitmore Air Station is reportedly at about 40% capacity. They can still accommodate several hundred more patients if needed.
Let's hope they don't need to. Though with case numbers still climbing, they probably will.
I hate the way we've started talking about people as numbers. Capacity, cases, counts. These are human beings, each with a story and family and a life that's been upended.
You're right. And that's an important reminder. Behind every statistic is a person, someone's mother or brother or friend. We should never lose sight of that humanity.
It's easy to become desensitized when you're processing information at this volume and speed. The numbers help us understand scope, but they also abstract away the individual suffering.
That's the challenge of crisis reporting. We need to convey the scale while honoring the individual impact. It's not easy.
We're 10 minutes from curfew. Final warning for anyone listening who's not yet home.
This is your last chance to get where you need to be. If you're in transit, move quickly and directly. If you're not home and you're not an essential worker, you're about to be in violation. Officers will be checking credentials starting at 10 p.m. sharp.
Traffic cameras show the streets are mostly clear now, just emergency vehicles and a few late commuters racing home.
Good. Let me take a moment to look ahead at what we might expect in the coming hours and days. Tonight will likely be relatively quiet as the curfew takes effect and things settle. Tomorrow morning we'll see how the city functions under these new restrictions. Businesses that are allowed to operate will open, but with modifications. The healthcare crisis will continue to evolve. We might have more information from investigators about the source of the contamination. Research into the pathogen will continue. Quarantine facilities will either stabilize or become more stressed depending on case progression. and life will go on altered but continuing.
It's strange to think about mundane things like businesses opening and closing when we're facing this kind of crisis.
But that's reality. Life doesn't stop completely even in a disaster. People still need food, medicine, essential services. The world keeps turning.
5 minutes to curfew. I'm seeing police units taking positions. This is really happening.
The time is 9:55 p.m. In 5 minutes our city enters its first curfew in modern memory. This is an extraordinary measure in extraordinary times. For everyone at home listening to this, thank you for your cooperation. Your compliance makes this city safer and helps our first responders and healthcare workers do their jobs.
I'm feeling emotional about this. The reality is hitting me.
I think we're all feeling it, Emily. This is a historic moment and not in a way anyone wanted.
2 minutes. The streets are empty now. It's eerie seeing the city this quiet.
Like something out of a movie, except it's real and we're living it.
1 minute.
30 seconds. Everyone should be home now. Doors locked, safe inside. Whatever happens tonight, we'll face it together from our separate homes connected by these airwaves.
10 seconds. 5. And it's 10 p.m. Curfew is now in effect.
Our city has gone quiet. The streets are clear. We're under curfew. This is Daniel Rothman on 91.48 FM, and we will continue broadcasting throughout this night and however many days and nights this crisis lasts. You're not alone. We're here with you.
I'm seeing the police beginning patrols. Very orderly, very professional, just maintaining presence.
No incidents so far?
None reported. Complete compliance as far as I can tell.
That's remarkable, actually. In a city this size, to have essentially everyone comply immediately with a curfew, it speaks to how seriously people are taking this.
Or how frightened they are.
Probably both. Fear can motivate compliance, but so can community responsibility. I'd like to think it's more the latter than the former.
Daniel, we're getting our first update from inside one of the quarantine hospitals. This is from Mercy General, where Michael was reporting earlier.
What does it say?
Medical staff report that some patients are responding to sedation and supportive care. The violent episodes are being managed with medication. A few patients have shown signs of improvement, decreased aggression, and increased lucidity.
That's encouraging. If treatment protocols are having any effect at all, that's progress.
Though we don't know if that's actual recovery or just temporary suppression of symptoms.
True, but I'll take any positive news right now. Even temporary improvement gives hope and gives researchers something to work with.
The update also mentions that 3 healthcare workers at that facility have developed symptoms and been moved to isolation.
So the number of infected medical staff continues to grow. That's deeply concerning.
If healthcare workers keep getting sick, the system will collapse from lack of personnel before it collapses from patient overload.
That's a grim but accurate assessment. The people we depend on to manage this crisis are becoming victims themselves.
There's a discussion in the update about implementing stricter protective measures for staff, enhanced PPE, limited patient contact time, mandatory rest periods to reduce fatigue-related errors.
All sensible measures that probably should have been in place from the beginning. But hindsight is perfect and crisis response is messy.
I'm seeing that the CDC has released a preliminary pathogen identification. They believe it's a variant of a virus from the arbovirus family, possibly related to West Nile virus, but significantly mutated.
That's the first definitive identification we've heard. If they know the family, that helps with treatment development.
Arboviruses are typically transmitted by arthropods like mosquitoes or ticks. How would that translate to contaminated medical equipment?
The virus itself can survive outside a host for varying periods depending on conditions. If equipment was contaminated with infected blood or tissue and not properly sterilized, the virus could remain viable and infect the next patient.
So we're not talking about mosquitoes spreading this, we're talking about the virus surviving the sterilization process or contaminating equipment after sterilization.
Exactly. The transmission method is equipment-based, but the virus itself has characteristics similar to known arboviruses.
Does that mean antiviral treatments developed for West Nile or similar viruses might be effective?
Possibly. They'll likely start with known antivirals and see if any show efficacy. It's a faster approach than developing something from scratch.
This is genuinely encouraging information. We've gone from complete unknown to at least a starting point for treatment. Michael, when was this CDC report released?
About 40 minutes ago. It just started circulating through medical channels.
So very recent. They've been working fast to identify this pathogen. That's impressive work.
I imagine they had the best virologists in the country focused on this exclusively. When you throw enough resources at a problem, you can move quickly.
Let's hope that speed continues through the treatment development phase. Every day without effective treatment means more people suffer.
The report also notes that the mutation appears to affect the virus's neurotropic properties, meaning its affinity for nervous tissue. That explains the behavioral symptoms.
So it's targeting the brain more aggressively than the typical West Nile virus?
That's what the preliminary analysis suggests. It crosses the blood-brain barrier more easily and replicates in neural tissue, causing the inflammation and dysfunction we're seeing.
That's terrifying from a medical standpoint. Brain infections are notoriously difficult to treat because many drugs can't cross that blood-brain barrier effectively.
One step forward, one step back. We know what it is, but knowing what it is reveals how challenging it will be to treat.
That's the nature of medical science. Every answer creates new questions.
The time is now 10:17 p.m. We've been under curfew for 17 minutes, and our city remains quiet. For those just tuning in, we are continuing live coverage of the medical crisis that has affected over 2,000 people across multiple states. A virus related to West Nile but significantly mutated is causing severe neurological symptoms in patients who were exposed through contaminated surgical equipment. Hospitals are under quarantine, a curfew is in effect, and federal investigators are examining the equipment supplier that may be the source of contamination. We have teams monitoring this situation around the clock and will keep you informed as developments occur.
I want to remind listeners that we have resources available. The emergency hotline, 1-800-555-0147, is staffed 24 hours for anyone with medical concerns. Local emergency services remain operational for life-threatening situations, and we're here on 91.48 FM continuously.
Thank you, Emily. Let's open up the conversation a bit. We've been focused heavily on the medical and logistical aspects of this crisis. I'd like to talk about the human experience. What are people going through emotionally and psychologically right now? Emily, you've been monitoring messages and calls. What are people expressing?
Fear is the dominant emotion, obviously, but also confusion, anger, helplessness. A lot of people feel like their lives have been hijacked by something completely beyond their control. They had plans, routines, expectations about how their week would go, and suddenly everything is upended.
That loss of control is deeply destabilizing. Humans need a sense of agency, a feeling that our choices matter. A crisis like this strips that away.
I'm seeing a lot of solidarity too, though. Communities coming together, neighbors checking on each other, offers of help flooding social media. People want to do something constructive.
That's the positive side of human nature. When we can't control the big picture, we focus on what we can control, which is how we treat each other.
There's also a lot of grief. People mourning the loss of normalcy, even if it's temporary. Grieving canceled plans, disrupted routines, the sense of safety we had just days ago.
That grief is valid. Even if no one you know has been infected, even if you're physically safe, the world has changed, and that change is a loss. It's okay to mourn that.
Some people are finding meaning in the crisis, talking about it as a wake-up call, an opportunity to reassess priorities, a chance to build a better society afterward.
I appreciate that perspective, but I also think it's important not to romanticize suffering. Yes, maybe some good will come from this eventually. Maybe we'll learn lessons or make changes that improve things long term. But right now, people are sick and dying and frightened. We don't need to find silver linings immediately.
That's well said. Sometimes the most compassionate thing is to simply acknowledge that something is terrible without trying to make it meaningful or purposeful.
Suffering doesn't need justification. It just is. Our job is to reduce it where we can and support each other through it.
I'm seeing reports that some religious communities are organizing prayer vigils remotely, using online platforms to come together spiritually while staying physically apart.
For people who find comfort in faith, that's valuable. Whatever helps people cope, as long as it's not harmful or reckless.
There are also mental health professionals offering free services remotely, counselors and therapists recognizing that psychological support is crucial during a crisis.
That's wonderful. The mental health impact of this situation could be as significant as the physical health impact. Trauma, anxiety, depression, these are real consequences that will affect people for months or years.
We should share those resources. Do we have contact information for mental health services?
I can compile a list. Give me a few minutes.
Please do. And we'll make sure to share that information regularly. Taking care of mental health is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Daniel, I'm seeing increased activity on emergency service frequencies, multiple units being dispatched to locations around the city.
Curfew violations?
Some of those, but also what sounds like medical calls, people experiencing panic attacks, anxiety-related symptoms.
The psychological toll manifesting as physical symptoms. That's not surprising given the stress level.
There's also at least one domestic disturbance call. Families confined together under stress sometimes experience conflict.
Another consequence of the curfew and crisis that's easy to overlook. Not everyone's home is a safe haven. For some people, being locked inside creates different dangers.
Emergency services are responding to all calls. They're not ignoring situations just because of the curfew.
Good. The curfew is about public safety, not preventing people from getting help when they need it.
I have that list of mental health resources ready.
Go ahead and share it.
The National Crisis Hotline is available at 1-800-273-8255. That's staffed 24 hours by trained counselors. The crisis text line can be reached by texting HOME to 741-741. Several local therapists have created a volunteer network offering free virtual sessions. That information is available at mentalhealthcrisissupport.org, and many insurance companies have waived copays for mental health services during the emergency period.
Thank you, Emily. Let me repeat those resources. If you're struggling emotionally or psychologically, help is available. The National Crisis Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Crisis text line, text HOME to 741-741, and check mentalhealthcrisissupport.org for local volunteer services. There is no shame in asking for help. These are difficult circumstances, and professional support can make a real difference.
We're getting an update from the federal quarantine facility at Whitmore. They've established a family notification system. Relatives can call a dedicated line to get basic status updates about patients.
Finally, some relief for families in that awful limbo. What's the number?
1-866-555-0199. They're asking callers to have the patient's full name and date of birth ready to help locate records quickly.
1-866-555-0199. For family notifications about patients at the Whitmore facility. That's a significant step toward addressing one of the most painful aspects of this crisis.
The system is apparently limited to basic information, whether the person is at the facility, their general condition, and whether they're in stable or critical status. It's not detailed medical updates, but it's better than nothing.
It absolutely is. Just knowing that your loved one is alive and receiving care is enormously important for families.
The call center is apparently overwhelmed already. Wait times are over an hour.
Predictable but unfortunate. Hopefully they'll scale up staffing quickly.
Daniel, we're approaching 11 p.m. Should we bring in our overnight colleague or continue for a while longer?
Let's continue. I'm not tired, and I think it's important to maintain continuity right now. We can transition later if needed.
Understood. I'm good to keep going as well.
I'll stay online for at least another hour before taking my break.
Appreciate it, both of you. The time is 10:41 p.m. We've been under curfew for 41 minutes and the city remains peaceful. No major incidents, just the normal flow of emergency services responding to various calls. The healthcare crisis continues to develop. We have new information about the pathogen and its characteristics. Treatment research is ongoing, and federal investigators are examining the potential source of contamination. This is 91.48 FM. Your continuous source for verified information during this emergency.
I want to mention something I've been thinking about. We've talked a lot about the immediate crisis, but we haven't discussed long-term implications. What happens to our healthcare system after this? How do we rebuild trust in hospitals as safe places?
That's a profound question, Emily. The psychological impact of hospitals becoming outbreak sites could last for years. People may avoid seeking medical care even for serious conditions because of fear.
There will need to be major reforms in equipment sterilization protocols, probably across the entire healthcare industry. This crisis will likely lead to stricter regulations and oversight.
As it should. If systemic failures allowed this to happen, those failures need to be corrected. But you're right, Emily, about the trust issue. That's harder to fix than protocols.
Healthcare institutions will need to be completely transparent about their processes, maybe allow more public oversight, publish sterilization records, implement tracking systems, so every instrument can be verified as safe.
Those are good ideas, though they add complexity and cost. The question is whether the industry will implement such measures voluntarily or whether it will take regulatory force.
My guess is it will require regulation. Industries rarely reform themselves without external pressure.
Cynical but probably accurate. The good that might come from this crisis is a safer healthcare system for everyone. That's small consolation to those currently suffering, but it's something.
We're getting reports that some hospitals outside the quarantine zones are already implementing enhanced sterilization measures, double-checking equipment, extending sterilization cycles, adding verification steps.
Proactive measures by facilities that don't want to become the next outbreak site. Smart and responsible.
I'm also seeing that some hospitals are switching to single-use disposable instruments where possible, avoiding the sterilization issue entirely.
That has environmental implications and cost implications, but if it prevents infection, it might be worth it.
Everything is a trade-off. Safety versus cost versus environmental impact versus efficiency. There are no perfect solutions.
Welcome to the complexity of real-world problem solving. We want simple answers, but reality rarely provides them.
Daniel, there's a developing situation I need to mention. I'm seeing reports of a disturbance at one of the quarantine checkpoints, the one at Mercy General's north entrance.
What kind of disturbance?
A family member trying to force their way past the checkpoint. Officers are attempting to de-escalate, but the individual is very agitated.
This was bound to happen. Desperation makes people do things they wouldn't normally do.
Are we getting details about who or why?
Limited information, just that it's a middle-aged man trying to reach someone inside the hospital. He's unarmed, but refusing to comply with orders to stand back.
I understand his desperation. Someone he loves is in there and he feels helpless out here. But forcing past a quarantine checkpoint is dangerous for everyone, including him.
Officers are calling for backup. This could escalate.
Let's hope it doesn't. The last thing anyone needs is violence at a checkpoint. Michael, keep monitoring that situation closely.
Will do.
This is heartbreaking. I keep imagining what these families are going through.
I know, and there's no easy answer. You can't compromise quarantine integrity for individual cases, but you also can't ignore the human anguish driving these actions.
Update. The man has been restrained by officers. No injuries reported. He's being taken into custody.
Probably for the best, as sad as that is. They'll likely release him once he calms down, maybe connect him with social services or counseling.
Another person traumatized by this crisis.
The ripples from this event will spread for months and years. Every person affected becomes a story, and those stories will be told and retold as we try to make sense of what happened.
I'm seeing that incident already spreading on social media. Someone recorded video on a phone. It's being shared rapidly.
Of course it is. We live in an age where everything is documented and broadcast instantly. That has benefits in terms of transparency, but also costs in terms of privacy and context.
The video shows a man being wrestled to the ground by 4 officers. Without context, it looks like police brutality. With context, it's a necessary intervention to prevent a quarantine breach.
And most people viewing the video won't have or care about the context. They'll see what they want to see, react emotionally, and move on.
This is why official communication matters so much. If authorities don't get ahead of these narratives, misinformation fills the void.
True, but also recognize that official communication is never fast enough in the age of social media. Something happens and it's viral before the press release is even written.
We're in a new era of crisis communication where traditional methods don't work anymore.
Which is why broadcasts like ours are valuable. We can provide real-time context and verification that official channels can't match. Not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but I think what we're doing here matters.
I agree. People need a steady source of reliable information, especially when social media is flooded with rumors and partial truths.
The time is 11:03 p.m. We're just over an hour into curfew and the city is adapting to this new reality. There have been a few isolated incidents, but overall compliance has been strong. The medical crisis continues with over 2,000 confirmed cases nationally. Research into treatment options is progressing. Federal investigators are examining potential contamination sources, and life goes on, changed but continuing. This is Daniel Rothman on 91.48 FM, here with you through the night.
I'm going to take my break now if that's all right. I'll be offline for about 2 hours, then back to support overnight coverage.
Take care of yourself, Michael. Get some rest. We'll hold down the fort here.
Thanks. I'll have alerts active so if anything major breaks, I'll know immediately.
Perfect. And Michael, truly excellent work today. Your reporting has been invaluable.
Appreciate that, Daniel. Talk to you both later.
He's offline now. Emily, how are you holding up?
Tired, but functional. I think adrenaline is keeping me going at this point.
Same here. We'll probably crash hard once this initial phase is over, but for now we push through.
Do you think there will be an end to this initial phase, or are we in it for the long haul?
Honest answer? I don't know. The next few days will tell us a lot. If case numbers start to level off, if treatments show promise, if the quarantines hold, we might see a turning point. But if things continue to escalate, we could be looking at weeks or months of crisis conditions.
That's a sobering thought.
It is. But we deal with reality as it exists, not as we wish it to be. Right now, we're in the acute phase of a major outbreak. We respond accordingly and hope for the best while preparing for the worst.
Very pragmatic.
Years of journalism teach you to be pragmatic. Hope for good outcomes, but don't be surprised by bad ones.
I'm seeing an update from the CDC. They're releasing more information about the virus mutation.
Go ahead.
The mutation affects three key areas. First, it makes the virus more resistant to standard sterilization procedures. It can survive in conditions that would normally kill similar viruses. Second, it increases the virus's ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. And third, it appears to have a higher replication rate in neural tissue compared to the parent virus.
So it's harder to kill, more effective at reaching the brain, and faster growing once it gets there. That's a perfect storm of mutations from a public health standpoint.
The CDC is calling it an extremely rare convergence of genetic changes. The odds of these particular mutations occurring together naturally are very low.
Are they suggesting this wasn't natural?
They're not making that claim explicitly, but reading between the lines, they're certainly investigating all possibilities, including the idea that this could be engineered.
That would change everything. If this is a deliberate release rather than an unfortunate accident, we're talking terrorism or biological warfare.
The investigation into MedTech solutions takes on new significance if that's the case. Was their equipment contaminated accidentally or deliberately?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The mutations could still be natural, just unlikely. Nature produces unlikely things all the time.
True. I'm just noting what the report suggests without stating outright.
Understood. And it's good that authorities are investigating all angles, but we need to be careful about speculation that could cause panic or misdirect attention.
Agreed.
Let's shift focus a bit. I want to talk about what normal life looks like under these conditions. Tomorrow morning, people will wake up to their first full day under a state of emergency. What should they expect?
Essential businesses will be open, grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations, but potentially with limited hours or capacity restrictions. Non-essential businesses remain closed. Schools are closed indefinitely. Public transportation is running on a reduced schedule.
So if you need food or medicine, you can get it, but otherwise stay home.
Correct. The guidance is to minimize public interaction as much as possible, not because the virus spreads person to person in casual contact, but to reduce strain on systems and make emergency response easier.
What about work? Are people expected to work from home if possible?
That's the recommendation. Employers are being asked to allow remote work wherever feasible. Only jobs that absolutely require physical presence should have people reporting to work sites.
Which is probably going to cause economic strain. Many jobs can't be done remotely.
The economic impact is going to be severe, no question about that, but authorities are calculating that the health crisis takes priority and the economy can recover eventually.
In theory, yes. In practice, economic collapse creates its own health and social problems. It's all interconnected.
Everything is trade-offs and balances. There are no choices without consequences.
That should be the motto for crisis management. I'm seeing that it's now 11:28 p.m. Let me provide another update for listeners who might be tuning in. This is 91.48 FM emergency broadcast. I'm Daniel Rothman, along with my colleague Emily, bringing you continuous coverage of the ongoing medical crisis. Over 2,000 people across 9 states have been infected with a mutated virus that causes severe neurological symptoms. Hospitals are under quarantine. A citywide curfew is in effect from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Federal and state authorities are coordinating response efforts. Research into treatment is ongoing with some encouraging early results. Stay tuned for updates throughout the night.
We should mention the family notification line again, 1-866-555-0199, for information about patients at the Whitmore Quarantine Facility.
Good reminder. And the mental health resources. National Crisis Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Crisis text line, text HOME to 741741.
I'm getting word that several hospital administrators will be holding a joint press conference tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. They'll be addressing operations, safety measures, and public concerns.
We'll carry that live. It'll be good to hear directly from hospital leadership about how they're managing this internally.
I imagine they're under enormous pressure, trying to maintain public trust while dealing with a crisis that originated in their own facilities.
No easy position to be in. They're simultaneously victims of this contamination and responsible for fixing it.
Do you think the public will be forgiving, or will there be anger toward hospitals?
Both, probably. Some people will understand that hospitals were unwitting victims of faulty equipment. Others will demand accountability and want someone to blame. Human nature includes both compassion and a desire for justice.
It's going to be legally complicated. If MedTech is found liable, do hospitals have any responsibility for not catching the problem?
That's for courts to decide eventually. There will be years of litigation coming out of this.
Meanwhile, people are suffering now and need care now. The legal questions are important but secondary to the immediate crisis.
Exactly. Dredge the urgent issues first, deal with accountability later.
Daniel, I'm seeing reports of power fluctuations in some parts of the city. Brief brownouts, nothing sustained.
Is that related to the crisis or normal infrastructure issues?
Unclear. Could be increased load from people staying home running appliances and electronics. Could be routine maintenance or problems. The power company hasn't issued any statements.
Worth monitoring. The last thing we need is power failures on top of everything else.
Backup generators are operational at all critical facilities, including hospitals and emergency services. Even if there are outages, essential operations can continue.
Small comfort but important. Let's hope the power grid holds steady.
We're getting messages from listeners, people sharing their experiences, asking questions, offering support to each other.
That's heartening. What are they saying?
One person writes that they're a retired nurse, and they're volunteering to help at hospitals if needed. Another says they're organizing a neighborhood support network to check on elderly residents. Someone else is asking about pet care, whether it's safe to take dogs out for walks under the curfew.
Good questions. On the pet issue, brief walks for essential animal care are generally permitted under curfew exceptions, but people should stay close to home and make it quick.
Another listener asks whether mail delivery will continue normally.
I believe postal service is considered essential and will continue, but there might be delays. Let me verify that.
I'm checking. Yes, mail service continues, but with possible delays due to staffing and safety protocols.
So expect your mail, but don't panic if it's late. These are the small details of daily life that become uncertain in a crisis.
Someone is asking whether they should send their kids to stay with relatives in another state, away from the affected area.
That's a personal decision each family has to make. Factors to consider include whether travel is advisable, whether the other state is truly unaffected, whether separating the family creates more stress than it relieves. There's no universal answer.
I think a lot of parents are struggling with that decision right now.
Of course, the instinct to protect your children is powerful, but sometimes protection means staying together and managing risk, not fleeing.
It's 11:47 p.m., coming up on midnight.
The first midnight of this crisis. I wonder how many more we'll see before this is resolved.
Optimistic estimate?
Best case maybe a week before we see significant progress. More likely 2 to 3 weeks before things start improving.
And worst case?
I'd rather not speculate on worst case scenarios. Let's focus on hoping for and working toward the best outcomes.
Fair enough.
Emily, why don't you take a break? Get some water, stretch, rest your eyes for a bit. I can manage solo for 20 minutes.
You're sure?
Absolutely. We need to pace ourselves. This could be a long night and even longer days ahead.
Okay, I'll be back shortly.
Take your time. All right, listeners, Emily is taking a brief break and it's just me here for the moment. The time is 11:49 p.m. Our city is quiet under curfew. The medical crisis continues, but the situation is stable for now. I want to take this opportunity to speak more personally than I usually do. Today has been one of the most challenging days of my career. Trying to provide accurate information during a rapidly developing crisis, maintaining composure when I'm frightened like everyone else, balancing the need to inform with the responsibility not to alarm unnecessarily. It's difficult work, but it's also important work, and I'm honored that you've chosen to trust us as your source of information. Emily, Michael, and our entire team are committed to staying with you through this crisis. We'll tell you the truth as we understand it. We'll admit when we don't know something, and we'll do our best to help you make informed decisions for yourself and your family. That's all any journalist can promise, and we promise it to you sincerely. Now let me check for any updates. I'm seeing that case numbers have stabilized over the last 2 hours. We're still at approximately 2,000 confirmed cases with no significant increase reported in that time. That could mean several things. It might mean the quarantines are working. It might mean we've identified most of the affected individuals. Or it might just mean reporting has slowed overnight. We'll know more as tomorrow develops. The CDC research teams are continuing their work. I'm seeing a note that they've begun testing several antiviral medications to see if any show efficacy against this virus. Results from initial testing should be available within 24 to 48 hours. That's incredibly fast work. Normally drug testing takes weeks or months, but emergency protocols allow for accelerated timelines. The federal quarantine facility reports stable conditions. No incidents, patients are being cared for, staff are managing well given the circumstances. Family notifications are ongoing though the system remains backlogged. The investigation into MedTech Solutions is continuing. Federal agents are examining equipment, interviewing personnel, reviewing records. No conclusions yet, but the investigation is proceeding methodically. I'm seeing that several international health organizations have offered assistance. The World Health Organization has proposed sending experts. Several allied nations have offered medical supplies and personnel. The United States government is evaluating these offers and will likely accept at least some of them. This is becoming a crisis of global concern, not just a domestic issue. Other countries are watching closely and taking preventive measures. Some nations have issued travel advisories regarding the affected states. A few have implemented enhanced screening for travelers from the United States. This is standard protocol for infectious disease situations, but it shows how interconnected our world is. A crisis in one location quickly becomes relevant everywhere. It's now midnight. We've completed the first full hour of curfew and transitioned into a new day. For those keeping track, this is day one of the crisis as officially recognized, though cases were occurring before we knew what was happening. Emily is back from her break. Emily, anything to add?
Just that I'm impressed by your solo reporting. You covered a lot of ground in 20 minutes.
Thank you. Anything developing while you were away?
I got a message from our overnight colleague Sarah. She'll be here at 2 a.m. to take over so we can both rest.
Sounds good. 2 more hours and then we hand off. Think you can make it?
Definitely. I'm getting my second wind.
The adrenaline will carry us through. Let's talk about tomorrow's schedule. We have the hospital administrator's press conference at 9 a.m. Anything else scheduled?
The governor is expected to give a daily briefing at 11 a.m. That might become a regular thing for the duration of this crisis.
Makes sense. Daily updates keep the public informed and give officials a platform for guidance.
There's also talk of the president establishing a daily task force briefing, similar to what was done during previous national crises.
Transparency and communication. That's how you maintain public trust during difficult times.
I'm seeing an interesting development. Several universities have offered their research facilities and personnel to help with treatment development.
Academic institutions stepping up? That's good to see. They have expertise and resources that can contribute significantly.
One major university is offering to run clinical trials of potential treatments if any candidates are identified.
Clinical trials normally take months to organize. I assume they're proposing expedited protocols?
Yes, emergency authorization would allow for much faster timelines while still maintaining safety standards.
Every day saved in development could mean lives saved. I hope they can make that work.
Daniel, I want to ask you something off the record, just between us for a moment. How are you really doing with all this?
Honestly, I'm scared. I'm trying to project calm and confidence for our listeners, but internally I'm as frightened as anyone. This situation is unprecedented in our lifetimes. The scope, the uncertainty, the potential for things to get much worse. It's overwhelming when I let myself think about it.
I appreciate your honesty. I'm scared too, putting on a professional front while feeling terrified inside.
That's the job, though. People need us to be steady even when we're not. They need a voice that sounds like someone is in control, even if that control is mostly an illusion.
Do you think we're doing the right thing, staying on air, continuing to broadcast?
I do. Information is crucial in a crisis. Rumor and speculation are dangerous. If we can provide accurate, verified information and help people make good decisions, that's valuable. It might be the most valuable thing we can do.
That helps. Sometimes I wonder if we're just adding to the noise.
We're fighting the noise, Emily. Don't doubt that. All right, back on the record. It's 12:19 a.m. and we're continuing our coverage on 91.48 FM. For those just tuning in at this late hour, here's where things stand. A mutated virus has infected over 2,000 people across multiple states. The virus causes severe neurological symptoms and was spread through contaminated surgical equipment. Hospitals are quarantined, a curfew is in effect, and response efforts are coordinated at federal and state levels. Treatment research is ongoing with promising early developments. Stay with us for continuing updates.
I'm monitoring emergency services, and things remain quiet. A few medical calls, one traffic accident, otherwise peaceful.
The curfew seems to be working as intended. Streets clear, minimal activity, allowing emergency services to operate efficiently.
I'm wondering how sustainable this is, though. You can implement a curfew for a few days, maybe a week, but much longer than that, and you start seeing economic and social consequences that create new problems.
Absolutely. This is a short-term measure. If the crisis extends beyond a week or two, authorities will need to find a different approach.
What would that look like?
Modified restrictions probably. Maybe allow more normal activity during daytime while maintaining overnight curfews. Gradual reopening of businesses with safety protocols. A measured approach that balances safety with functionality.
Assuming the outbreak can be contained enough to allow that.
Right. All of this assumes we're able to get ahead of the infection rate. If it continues to spread despite quarantines, we're looking at a different scenario entirely.
One that I don't want to contemplate.
None of us do. So we hope for the best and prepare for whatever comes.
I'm seeing that some religious leaders are planning to deliver messages to their congregations via broadcast tomorrow. Since gatherings aren't allowed, they're adapting.
Faith communities finding new ways to connect. That's important for people who derive strength and comfort from religious practice.
Several churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, all planning virtual services.
Crisis drives innovation. When normal methods aren't available, people find alternatives.
Speaking of innovation, there's a grassroots effort to create a volunteer network for delivering groceries and supplies to people who can't or shouldn't leave their homes. Elderly, immunocompromised, those in high-risk categories.
Community organizing at its best. That's the kind of mutual aid that makes a real difference during disasters.
They're coordinating through social media and setting up safe, contactless delivery protocols.
If you're in a position to help and want to contribute, those volunteer networks are a great option. And if you need help, don't be too proud to ask. This is what communities are for.
It's 12:41 a.m. We're past midnight on what's technically day 2 of the official crisis.
Time becomes strange during something like this. Days blur together, hours feel like minutes or drag like years depending on what's happening.
I've lost track of how long we've been on air today.
Since about 6 p.m. yesterday, so over 6 hours continuously.
It feels both longer and shorter than that.
That's the crisis time distortion effect. Your perception gets warped by stress and adrenaline.
I'm getting an update from one of the hospital administrators. Off the record, not for broadcast yet, but interesting information.
What is it?
They're seeing that patients who receive treatment within the first 12 hours of symptom onset are having better outcomes than those who were treated later. Early intervention seems to make a significant difference.
That's important. If we can get that confirmed and made public, it could encourage people to seek help immediately rather than waiting.
The administrator wants more data before making it official guidance, but the pattern is clear in their patient population.
How much better are the outcomes?
Patients treated early are recovering lucidity faster and showing less severe behavioral symptoms. Some have been able to be released from full restraints and are communicating normally.
That's genuinely encouraging. It suggests this isn't necessarily a permanent condition if caught early.
Right, though we still don't know about long-term effects or whether recovery is complete or partial.
One step at a time. Any positive news is welcome at this point.
The administrator also mentioned that staff morale is holding up better than expected. People are exhausted but determined.
Healthcare workers are remarkable. The resilience and dedication required to keep functioning under these conditions is extraordinary.
Many of them are working double shifts because staffing is tight due to infected personnel being isolated.
So they're understaffed, dealing with a crisis situation, risking their own health, and still showing up every day. Heroes doesn't feel like an adequate word.
It really doesn't.
I'm seeing that it's now 1:03 a.m. We're into the small hours of the morning when most people are asleep, but we're here and we'll stay here because someone needs to be. This is 91.48 FM, continuous emergency broadcast. I'm Daniel Rothman with Emily, bringing you verified information and steady presence through this crisis. If you're awake and listening, you're not alone. We're right here with you.
We're getting messages from overnight workers, security guards, nurses, police officers, people whose jobs keep them up at these hours. They're thanking us for being on air.
We appreciate that. And we appreciate everyone working through the night to keep essential services running.
One message is from a hospital security officer at one of the quarantine facilities. He says the situation inside is tense but controlled. Patients are being cared for, no security breaches. Staff are managing.
It's good to get that ground-level perspective. Official statements are one thing, but hearing from someone actually there carries different weight.
He also says the hardest part is seeing the families outside, knowing they can't come in, can't see their loved ones.
I can't imagine how difficult that is. Being the barrier between desperate families and sick patients.
He says they're trying to be compassionate while maintaining security. It's a difficult balance.
Everything about this situation is difficult balances. Safety versus freedom, transparency versus preventing panic, hope versus realism.
I suppose that's true of most crises.
Probably. This one just feels particularly fraught with impossible choices.
Do you think we'll look back on this and see clear right and wrong decisions, or will it remain ambiguous?
Honestly, I think we'll second guess everything regardless of how it turns out. That's human nature. We'll find things that could have been done differently, decisions that seem obvious in hindsight.
But right now, in the moment, nothing is obvious.
Exactly. We're making decisions with incomplete information under enormous pressure. Some will prove correct, some won't, but they're all being made in good faith with the knowledge available.
That's a compassionate way to view it.
I try to be. Judgment is easy from the outside or after the fact. Living through it and making real-time decisions is infinitely harder.
It's 1:26 a.m. We're less than an hour from shift change.
How are you feeling? Ready to hand off?
I think so. I'm definitely feeling the fatigue now, but I'm glad we've been here tonight.
Me too. This has been important work.
I'm seeing another update from the CDC. They've completed genetic sequencing of the virus and confirmed it's definitely a mutation, not an engineered pathogen.
So the conspiracy theories about biological warfare can be put to rest.
According to the analysis, the genetic markers are consistent with natural mutation rather than laboratory manipulation.
That's one less thing to worry about, at least. We're dealing with nature, not human malice.
Though nature can be just as dangerous as any weapon.
True, but it's somehow less frightening to me. A natural disaster doesn't have intent or strategy, it just is what it is.
I suppose that's a matter of perspective. Some people find intentional threats easier to understand and counter.
Fair point. Either way, we know what we're dealing with now, and that knowledge helps.
The CDC report also includes recommendations for treatment protocols based on what they've learned about the virus's mechanism of action.
What are they recommending?
Antiviral drugs from the same family used to treat West Nile, combined with anti-inflammatory medications to reduce brain swelling and sedatives to manage aggressive episodes. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Has this protocol been tested yet?
They've begun implementing it at several facilities. Results should start coming in over the next 24 hours.
So we might have confirmed effective treatment by this time tomorrow.
Potentially. If the early results are positive, they can roll out the protocol broadly very quickly.
That would be transformative. From a situation with no treatment to having an effective protocol in just 2 days. Modern medicine is remarkable when properly motivated.
Emergency circumstances drive innovation, people working around the clock, cutting through bureaucracy, focusing entirely on solving one problem.
It's unfortunate that it takes a crisis to achieve that level of focus and efficiency.
Imagine what we could accomplish if we applied that same intensity to other problems.
Climate change, poverty, disease prevention. The list is long.
But human nature seems to require immediate crisis before mobilizing that way.
Sadly accurate. We're reactive rather than proactive as a species.
Well, this is getting philosophical for 1:47 in the morning.
Crisis makes philosophers of us all. When normal life is disrupted, we start questioning everything.
I've certainly been doing a lot of thinking today about what matters, what's important, how fragile everything is.
Those are healthy thoughts to have, even if they're uncomfortable.
I'm seeing our colleague Sarah has arrived. She's getting set up in the control room.
Perfect timing. We're at 1:52 a.m. Let's give her a proper briefing and then we can both get some rest.
Sounds good. Sarah, can you hear us?
I can hear you both clearly. I'm ready to take over whenever you're ready to brief me.
Welcome, Sarah. Thanks for coming in for the overnight shift. Let me bring you up to speed on where we are. Over 2,000 confirmed cases across 9 states. Hospitals quarantined with National Guard support. Citywide curfew in effect until 6 a.m. Treatment protocols being tested with early promising results. Federal investigation ongoing into contamination source. CDC has confirmed the pathogen is a natural mutation. Next scheduled event is hospital administrators' press conference at 9 a.m. Michael is on break but monitoring for emergencies. Emily and I have been on since 6 p.m. yesterday and need rest.
Got it. Comprehensive update. Anything else I should know?
The family notification line is 1-8665-55-0199 for the Whitmore facility. Mental health resources at 1-800-273-8255 for crisis hotline. Emergency medical concerns should call 1-800-555-0147. Those are the numbers we've been repeating regularly.
I have all of those. Anything brewing that I should watch carefully?
Keep monitoring the hospital situations. Any change in patient conditions or security incidents is significant news. Also watch for updates from the CDC or federal investigators. And track social media for emerging stories or concerns that might need addressing.
Will do. You two should get out of here and rest. I've got this.
Thanks, Sarah. We appreciate it. Listeners, you're in excellent hands. Sarah will be here through the rest of the night and into the morning. Emily and I will be back later today to continue coverage. Take care of yourselves, follow official guidance, and try to get some rest if you can. This is Daniel Rothman signing off for now, but 91.48 FM continues broadcasting without interruption.
This is Emily saying good night and stay safe, everyone.
And this is Sarah taking over your emergency broadcast coverage. It's just after 2 a.m., and here's what you need to know. We're continuing to monitor the medical crisis affecting multiple states. The situation is stable at this hour with no new major developments in the last several hours. Quarantines remain in effect, curfew continues until 6 a.m., and response efforts are ongoing. I'll be here providing updates throughout the night and early morning. If you're just joining us, the key numbers to remember are 1-866-555-0199 for family notifications about quarantined patients, 1-800-273-8255 for mental health crisis support, and 1-800-555-0147 for medical emergency consultation. Our city is quiet tonight under curfew. Emergency services report minimal activity. This is a good sign that people are complying with restrictions and staying safe at home. I want to take a moment to address anyone listening who might be feeling anxious or scared. Those feelings are completely valid. We're facing an unprecedented situation, and uncertainty is frightening. But you're not powerless. You can control how you respond, how you take care of yourself and your family, how you treat your neighbors and community. Focus on what you can control and try not to obsess over what you can't. I'm monitoring multiple information sources, including emergency services, health departments, federal agencies, and local authorities. If anything significant develops, you'll hear about it immediately. Otherwise, I'll be providing regular updates and maintaining the steady presence through the night. The time is 2:14 a.m. Let me share some of the messages we're receiving from listeners. One person writes that they're using this quiet time to organize their emergency supplies and create a family plan for different scenarios. That's smart, productive activity that channels anxiety into preparation. Another listener says they're checking in with elderly neighbors via phone to make sure everyone is okay. That's exactly the kind of community care that makes a difference. Someone asks about whether schools will reopen soon. At this point, there's no definite timeline. Schools are closed indefinitely with remote learning being implemented where possible. We'll share more information as decisions are made. Another question about whether it's safe to go outside during the day for exercise. Yes, outdoor activity is permitted during non-curfew hours as long as you maintain distance from others and avoid crowded areas. Fresh air and exercise are important for physical and mental health. I'm seeing an update from one of the quarantine facilities. They're reporting that several patients have shown significant improvement over the last 6 hours. These are individuals who were treated early with the new protocol that the CDC recommended. Symptoms are decreasing. Lucidity is returning. Aggressive behaviors are reducing. This is very encouraging news. It suggests that early treatment with the right medications can make a real difference in outcomes. This doesn't mean we have a cure, but it means we have an approach that helps. That's progress. The facility is planning to continue the protocol with all patients and monitor results carefully. Other facilities are implementing the same approach based on these early positive signals. I'm also seeing that the investigation into MedTech Solutions has made progress. Federal agents have identified several autoclaves at the company's main processing facility that were not functioning properly. Temperature sensors were faulty, not accurately reflecting the actual temperatures inside the sterilization chambers. This meant instruments were not being sterilized to the required standards, even though the equipment appeared to be operating correctly. This is preliminary finding, but it provides a plausible explanation for how contamination could have occurred across multiple facilities. If a central processing location was sending out improperly sterilized equipment to many hospitals, that would create exactly the pattern we've seen. MedTech Solutions has issued a statement cooperating fully with investigators and suspending all sterilization operations pending a complete equipment audit. They're also recalling all instruments currently in circulation. This is a massive undertaking that will affect hundreds of hospitals, but it's a necessary step to prevent further contamination. The time is 2:47 a.m. We're about 3 hours from the end of curfew. I imagine many of you listening are night shift workers, insomniacs, worried parents unable to sleep, or just people too anxious about the situation to rest. Whatever brings you to this broadcast at this hour, you're welcome here. I'm going to share some practical information about tomorrow. Well, later today, actually. At 6 a.m., the curfew lifts. Normal daytime activity is permitted with the understanding that non-essential businesses remain closed. At 9 a.m., hospital administrators hold a press conference which will broadcast live. At 11 a.m., The governor gives a daily briefing which will also carry. Throughout the day, we'll have Daniel and Emily back on air providing analysis and updates. If you have questions or information to share, our call lines will be open during business hours. For now, messages can be sent through our website or social media channels. I'm monitoring all of those even at this hour. Someone is asking about mail delivery. Yes, postal service continues, though there may be delays. Another person wants to know about trash collection. That also continues on normal schedule. These mundane details of daily life become very important when everything else is disrupted. Maintaining routine services provides a sense of normalcy and stability. I'm seeing that one of the international offers of assistance has been accepted. A team of infectious disease specialists from Europe will be arriving later today to consult with CDC researchers. International cooperation on something like this is standard practice. Diseases don't respect borders, and global expertise can be valuable. The research team will focus on treatment development and will share their findings with the international medical community. This benefits everyone, because if this virus exists here, there's potential for it to appear elsewhere through similar contamination routes. Prevention and treatment protocols developed here can protect people globally. It's 3:19 a.m., and I'm going to pause for a moment to just sit with the reality of what's happening. We're in the middle of a genuine crisis. People are sick. Systems are strained. Life as we knew it has been disrupted. That's the truth, and there's no point in pretending otherwise. But here's another truth. People are working incredibly hard to fix this. Researchers are discovering treatments. Healthcare workers are caring for patients. Communities are supporting each other. Authorities are coordinating responses. All of this is happening simultaneously with the crisis. Both things are true. The situation is serious, and people are rising to meet it. I find that duality comforting somehow. Yes, things are bad, but humans are capable of remarkable things when necessary. We're seeing that capability in action right now. Emergency services radio traffic remains quiet. The city is peaceful under curfew. I'm monitoring weather conditions, and we have clear skies, mild temperatures, no environmental factors complicating the situation. That's a small mercy. Imagine dealing with this during a storm or extreme heat. Sometimes we get lucky in small ways, even during larger disasters. A listener writes asking whether they should talk to their children about what's happening or try to shield them from it. My non-expert opinion, and I'm not a parent or child psychologist, so take this with appropriate skepticism, is that children benefit from honest, age-appropriate information. They pick up on adult anxiety anyway, so giving them context helps them understand what they're feeling. But tailor the information to their age and temperament. Young children need simple reassurance. Older kids can handle more detail. The goal is to inform without terrifying. Make sense of what's happening while emphasizing that adults are working to keep everyone safe. Another message asks about pet care. Are animals at risk from this virus? Based on current information, no. This virus affects humans specifically. Your pets are not at risk and cannot transmit it. However, normal hygiene practices are always good. Wash hands after handling pets. Keep their living areas clean. Maintain their regular care routines. The routine is actually good for both you and your pet. Animals sense stress, and maintaining normalcy helps them stay calm too. It's 3:52 a.m. We're about 2 hours from the end of curfew. The eastern sky will start lightening in another hour or so. Dawn is coming, literally and I hope metaphorically. Each day we survive this crisis, we learn more, adapt better, move closer to resolution. Today will bring more information, probably more challenges, but also more progress. That's how these situations work. You push through day by day, solving problems as they arise, building toward eventual recovery. I'm seeing an update from the CDC research team. They've been working through the night, not surprisingly. They've identified 3 antiviral compounds that show strong activity against this virus in laboratory testing. The next step is confirming effectiveness in actual patients, which is already underway as part of the treatment protocol I mentioned earlier. If patient outcomes continue to be positive, we could have a confirmed treatment regimen by midday. That would be extraordinary progress in just over 24 hours from initial pathogen identification to working treatment. Science moving at crisis speed. The research team is also investigating potential vaccine development, but that's a longer timeline. Even with emergency authorization, vaccines require extensive testing to ensure safety. We're looking at weeks or months for a vaccine, but possibly days for treatment. Treatment is the more immediate concern anyway, since we have people sick right now who need help. I want to address something I've seen circulating on social media. There are claims that this virus was intentionally released, or that authorities knew about it in advance and did nothing. These conspiracy theories are not supported by evidence. The CDC genetic analysis shows natural mutation. The timeline of response matches what you'd expect from an unexpected outbreak. There's no indication of prior knowledge or deliberate action. I understand the desire to find meaning or malice in disasters. It feels better sometimes to believe someone is in control, even if they're evil, than to accept that random terrible things happen. But the evidence points to an unfortunate convergence of equipment failure and viral mutation. Not a conspiracy, just a disaster. Let evidence guide your understanding, not fear or suspicion. The time is 4:28 a.m. For those awake at this hour, I hope you're finding some peace or at least some distraction in this broadcast. The night can be lonely and frightening during a crisis. Knowing someone else is awake and sharing information can help ease that isolation. That's part of why we maintain 24-hour coverage during emergencies. Someone needs to be here. I'm going to share some resources for tomorrow when more services are available. If you need food assistance, several aid organizations are operating distribution centers at various locations around the city. Locations and hours are posted on the emergency management website. If you need medical care for non-crisis issues, telemedicine services are expanded and available. Most insurance companies are covering remote consultations fully during this emergency. If you need help with bills or rent due to the work disruptions, contact your utility companies and landlords. Many are offering payment deferrals or assistance programs. Don't suffer in silence. Help is available if you ask for it. The social safety net is being activated and expanded to meet this crisis. That's what it's designed for. I'm monitoring news from other affected cities. Most are reporting similar situations to ours. Quarantines in place, curfews implemented, treatment protocols being tested. The national response is relatively coordinated despite the multi-state nature of the outbreak. That coordination is crucial. Without it, we'd have different approaches in different areas, creating confusion and potentially allowing the virus to spread through gaps in protection. A unified strategy, even if imperfect, is better than fragmented efforts. International news shows that several countries have implemented entry restrictions for travelers from affected U.S. states. This is standard disease control practice. When an outbreak occurs, you limit travel from that area to prevent spread. It's not punishment or discrimination, just prudent public health policy. U.S. authorities are cooperating with these measures. It's 5:03 a.m., less than an hour until curfew lifts. I'm watching the sky through our windows and seeing the first hints of dawn. There's something hopeful about sunrise, even during dark times. The natural world continues its rhythms regardless of human crises. The sun rises. Birds will start singing soon. A new day begins, whether we're ready for it or not. I find that continuity reassuring. Our lives are disrupted, but some things remain constant. I'm seeing that grocery stores are preparing for the first post-curfew rush. They're implementing customer limits to prevent overcrowding and ensure safe shopping conditions. Please be patient if there are lines or wait times. Store staff are doing their best under difficult conditions. Treat them with kindness. Actually, that applies to everyone. Every person you encounter today is dealing with the same crisis you are. Customer service workers, delivery drivers, public safety officers, everyone. We're all stressed and frightened. Responding with kindness rather than frustration makes the day easier for everyone. Another international development. The World Health Organization has officially classified this as a global health concern, not a pandemic, since it's currently limited to specific regions, but serious enough to warrant international attention and coordination. This classification unlocks additional resources and facilitates information sharing between countries. It's bureaucratic but important. Official designations trigger response protocols and funding mechanisms that can make a real difference. The time is 5:36 a.m., 24 minutes until curfew ends. I imagine people are starting to wake up, beginning their morning routines, preparing for their first full day under these new conditions. For those just waking up and tuning in, here's where we are. Curfew ends at 6 a.m. The medical crisis continues with over 2,000 confirmed cases, but treatment protocols are showing early promise. Hospital administrators will brief at 9 a.m., governor at 11 a.m. Follow official guidance. Stay informed. Take care of yourselves and each other. This is Sarah, on 91.48 FM, your continuous emergency broadcast. I'm going to be here until Daniel and Emily return later this morning. I want to acknowledge the incredible work they did yesterday, and through last night. Hours of steady professional coverage keeping you informed. They'll rest and return refreshed to continue. That's how we sustain this. Teams rotating, supporting each other, ensuring someone is always here for you. I'm seeing increased radio traffic on emergency service frequencies. Morning shift officers are checking in, getting briefed on overnight conditions. The transition from night shift to day shift is happening across all emergency services. This is good.
It means systems are functioning. People are showing up for work. The machinery of society continues to operate even under stress. Some sense of normalcy in the routine. The sky is definitely getting lighter now. Dawn is breaking. In a few minutes, street lights will start going off. The curfew will officially end. And another day begins. Whatever this day brings, we'll face it together. You're not alone in this. Millions of people across multiple states are waking up to the same reality. We're all navigating this crisis together. That shared experience creates connection even when we're physically separated. It's 5:54 a.m., 6 minutes until curfew ends. I'm seeing people on the streets already. Early risers or essential workers heading to their jobs. Traffic is light but present. The city is waking up. I can see the sun coming up now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's beautiful in a way that feels almost inappropriate given the circumstances. But beauty exists regardless of our problems. That's worth remembering. The world contains both crisis and sunrise, both suffering and morning light. We can acknowledge both without diminishing either. 5 minutes now. Police units are beginning their regular patrols rather than curfew enforcement. The shift in focus is subtle but noticeable. From control to service. That's a good sign. It means we're finding a new normal. Figuring out how to function under these conditions. 3 minutes. I'm seeing more vehicles on the roads. People heading to work, to stores, to wherever they need to be. Life continues. 2 minutes. The city is coming alive. Restaurants that are allowed to operate will start opening soon. Delivery services will begin their routes. The day's activity is beginning. 1 minute. Take a breath. Whatever you're facing today, you can handle it. You've made it through the night. You'll make it through the day. 30 seconds. The sun is up. The curfew is ending. And it's 6 a.m. Curfew is officially ended. You are now free to move about as needed, following all other emergency guidelines and restrictions. Welcome to a new day. This is Sarah, on 91.48 FM, continuing your emergency broadcast coverage. The overnight hours were quiet with no significant incidents. Curfew compliance was excellent throughout the city. We're beginning day 2 of the official crisis response, with treatment protocols showing early promise and investigations progressing into the contamination source. I'll continue broadcasting and monitoring all developments until Daniel and Emily return. For those starting your day, here are the key things to remember. Essential businesses are open. Non-essential businesses remain closed. Maintain distance from others when in public. If you or someone you know shows symptoms, severe headache, confusion, aggression, disorientation, call the medical emergency line at 1-800-555-0147 immediately. Early treatment significantly improves outcomes. For families seeking information about quarantine loved ones, call 1-866-555-0199. For mental health support, the crisis hotline is 1-800-2738-255. These resources are available to help you. Please use them if you need them. I'm seeing that the first grocery stores are opening their doors now. Please shop responsibly. Buy what you need, but not more than you need. Consider that your neighbors have the same needs. Store staff will enforce customer limits and safety protocols. Cooperate with them. They're trying to keep everyone safe. Traffic is picking up on major routes. If you're commuting to work, please drive carefully. Emergency services are operational, but response times may be longer than usual due to the overall situation. Don't take unnecessary risks. I'm monitoring weather, and we have excellent conditions today. Clear skies, mild temperatures, low humidity. If you have the opportunity to spend time outside, even just sitting on a porch or balcony, the fresh air and natural light will do you good. Mental health during a crisis includes physical self-care. The time is 6:24 a.m. I'm seeing our colleagues arriving at the station. The day shift is beginning. Daniel and Emily got about 4 hours of rest. Not ideal, but better than nothing. They'll be back on air shortly to take over from me. Before I hand off, I want to say thank you for listening through this night. Your attention and trust mean a great deal. We're here to serve you, to keep you informed, to maintain this connection that helps us all feel a little less alone. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember that thousands of people are working around the clock to resolve this crisis. Progress is being made. Hold on to hope.
This is Daniel Rothman back on 91.48 FM. Thank you, Sarah, for excellent overnight coverage. I got a few hours of sleep and I'm ready to continue. Emily will be joining me shortly. The time is now 6:38 a.m. and we're well into what will be our first full day under emergency conditions. The curfew has lifted and the city is waking up to this new reality. I want to start by providing a comprehensive update on where we stand this morning. Case numbers remain at approximately 2,000 confirmed across all affected states. That number has held steady overnight, which suggests either that we've identified most exposed individuals or that the quarantines are preventing new infections. Treatment protocols using antivirals and anti-inflammatory medications are showing positive early results. Several patients have demonstrated significant improvement. The CDC continues researching and testing additional approaches. Federal investigators have identified faulty sterilization equipment at MedTech Solutions as the likely source of contamination. All equipment from that company has been recalled. Hospital administrators will brief at 9 a.m. about safety measures and operational status. The governor will provide updates at 11 a.m. Curfew will resume tonight at 10 p.m. Schools remain closed. Non-essential businesses remain closed. Essential services continue operating. International health organizations are providing support and expertise. Now let me talk about what I'm seeing as I look out at our city this morning. The streets have traffic, but it's lighter than normal. People are moving purposefully. No one is lingering or gathering. There's a sense of everyone wanting to accomplish what they need to and get back to safety. That's probably healthy behavior given the circumstances. Emily has joined me now. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning, Daniel. As good as it can be under the circumstances. How are you feeling after some rest?
Tired but functional. A few hours of sleep helped. How about you?
Same. It's strange to have slept through those hours. I kept waking up wondering if I was missing something important.
I think we both felt that way. But Sarah did an excellent job covering the overnight. We're all caught up on developments.
I've been reviewing overnight reports, and there's one thing I want to highlight. Several patients who showed severe symptoms just yesterday are now lucid and conversing normally this morning after receiving the treatment protocol. That's remarkable progress.
Do we know if that improvement is sustained or could they relapse?
Too early to tell definitively, but the medical teams are cautiously optimistic. They're continuing treatment and monitoring closely.
That's the best we can hope for at this stage. Cautious optimism with continued vigilance.
I'm also seeing that some of the healthcare workers who developed symptoms and received early treatment are recovering quickly. One nurse who showed symptoms yesterday morning is reportedly back to normal function today.
That's significant because it suggests the treatment works not just in some cases but potentially broadly, though again small sample size and early days.
Absolutely. We need more data, but the trend is encouraging.
The time is 6:58 a.m., and we're approaching the 2-hour mark until the hospital administrator's press conference. Let's talk about what we might hear from them. Emily, what questions do you think need to be answered?
First, what are they doing to ensure patient safety going forward? How are they verifying that all equipment is sterile? What redundant systems are being put in place? Second, what's the status of non-emergency medical care? When can people safely seek treatment for other conditions? Third, how are they supporting their staff through this crisis? And fourth, what do they know about long-term impacts on patients who have recovered?
All critical questions. I'd add one more. What are they doing to rebuild public trust in hospitals as safe spaces for healing?
That's essential. People need to feel safe seeking medical care, or we'll see other health problems emerge from neglect.
Exactly. The ripple effects of this crisis could be as damaging as the direct effects if people avoid necessary medical treatment out of fear.
I'm seeing that several hospitals have published their sterilization protocols online. Complete transparency about how instruments are cleaned and verified as safe.
That's a start toward rebuilding trust. Transparency helps, though I imagine some people will remain skeptical regardless.
Once trust is broken, it takes time to rebuild. That's just human psychology.
Speaking of psychology, how are you holding up emotionally, Emily? Yesterday was intense.
I'm processing it all. The magnitude of what's happening, the responsibility of being a reliable information source, my own fears and concerns. It's a lot.
It is. And it's okay to acknowledge that we're affected by this too. We're not outside observers, we're in the middle of it like everyone else.
That's what makes it real. We're reporting on something that's affecting our own lives directly.
Which I think makes us better at this. We understand viscerally what our listeners are experiencing.
True. There's no emotional distance to hide behind.
Nor should there be. Authentic emotion, appropriately expressed, connects us with the people we're serving.
I appreciate you talking about this. It helps to know I'm not alone in feeling overwhelmed sometimes.
You're definitely not alone. We're all human, Emily, doing our best but also struggling. That's okay.
Thank you. All right, back to work. I'm seeing an update about food distribution centers. Several locations across the city are opening today to provide groceries to people who can't afford them or can't get to stores safely.
Community organizations rising to meet the need. Where are these locations?
I have a list. Let me share the addresses. The main distribution center is at Lincoln Community Center on 5th Avenue, open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Second location is Memorial Church on Riverside Drive, same hours. Third is the Veterans Hall on Park Street. Fourth is the school gymnasium at Jefferson Elementary on Maple, all following safety protocols with limited occupancy and required distancing.
If you need food and can't get to stores or can't afford groceries, those distribution centers are available. No shame in using them. That's what community resources are for.
They're asking for volunteers to help with distribution if anyone is able and willing. Contact information is on the emergency management website.
Productive way to channel anxiety into action. Helping others often helps ourselves as well.
It's 7:19 a.m. We're an hour and 40 minutes from the press conference.
Let me provide another comprehensive update for listeners just tuning in as they start their morning. This is Daniel Rothman with Emily on 91.48 FM, your continuous emergency broadcast. A viral outbreak has affected over 2,000 people across 9 states. The virus causes neurological symptoms, but early treatment is proving effective. Hospitals are quarantined. Non-essential businesses closed. Curfew in effect from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. nightly. Federal investigators have identified contaminated sterilization equipment as the likely source. Hospital administrators will brief at 9 a.m., governor at 11 a.m. For medical concerns, call 1-800-555-0147. For family notifications, call 1-866-555-0199. For mental health support, call 1-800-273-8255. Stay informed through official channels and maintain safety precautions. We're here with you continuously providing verified information and steady coverage.
I want to mention something I'm seeing in listener messages. People are asking about when life might return to normal. What should we tell them, Daniel?
Honestly, we don't know. It depends on so many factors. How effective the treatments prove to be, whether we can prevent new infections, how quickly we can verify all medical equipment is safe, the economic pressures to reopen, public willingness to continue following restrictions. There are too many variables to give a confident timeline.
But people want some sense of time frame, even a rough estimate.
I understand, but providing false certainty does more harm than good. What we can say is that every day we make progress is a day closer to resolution. Some restrictions might ease within a week or two if things go well. Full return to pre-crisis normal could take months. But that's speculation, not prediction.
Fair enough. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, but it's honest.
It's the most honest answer we can give. Anyone claiming to know exactly when this will end is either lying or deluding themselves.
I'm seeing reports that some businesses are planning to permanently close rather than try to survive this shutdown period.
That's the economic devastation that comes with health crises. Small businesses especially operate on thin margins. Extended closure means bankruptcy for some.
There are relief programs being set up, but they won't save everyone.
No, they won't. Some businesses won't make it through this. Some jobs will be lost permanently. That's a tragedy on top of the medical tragedy.
The full cost of this crisis will be felt for years.
Absolutely. In health and economics and psychology and social structure, everything is affected.
It's overwhelming when you think about it that way.
Which is why we focus on what we can do right now. Inform people, support response efforts, maintain stability. The big picture is too large to tackle. We handle the pieces we can handle.
One moment at a time.
Exactly. It's 7:44 a.m. Let me check in with Michael. Michael, are you back and available?
I'm here, Daniel. Rested and ready. What do you need?
Just wanted to confirm you're monitoring and ready to support coverage.
Affirmative. I've been reviewing overnight reports and tracking current developments. I'm prepared to assist with research and analysis for the press conferences.
Excellent. We're going to rely on you for background information and fact-checking during the Q&A portions of these briefings.
Happy to provide that support.
Michael, what's your assessment of where we are this morning compared to yesterday evening when you went offline?
Overall stable with small positive signals. Case numbers haven't increased significantly. Treatment protocols are showing promise. The contamination source has been identified and contained. Public cooperation with restrictions is strong. The trajectory seems to be toward management rather than escalation.
That's my read as well. We're not out of this by any means, but we're not spiraling either.
Knock on wood.
Superstition, Emily?
Call it cautious optimism. I don't want to jinx progress by celebrating too early.
I understand the impulse, though. I'm not sure the universe listens to our celebrations or curses.
I'm seeing increased social media activity as people wake up and start their day. A lot of anxiety and questions.
What are the main concerns this morning?
Will my workplace be open? Is it safe to send kids to a neighbor or relative's house if I have to work? How long will this last? Can I get my prescription refilled safely? Pretty basic practical concerns.
Let's address those. Workplaces for essential services are open. Non-essential businesses remain closed. Check with your employer for specific guidance. Regarding children, that's a judgment call each family makes based on their circumstances and comfort level. There's no official restriction on leaving children with trusted caregivers. How long this lasts depends on how the situation develops. No definite timeline. Prescription refills are available at pharmacies with possible wait times. All pharmacies are open and operating.
I'd add that many pharmacies offer delivery service now if you're uncomfortable visiting in person.
Good point. Minimize exposure by using delivery options when available.
There's also anxiety about the press conferences today. People worried about bad news.
That's natural. Official briefings during crises can be frightening because they make the situation feel more real, and because there's always concern they'll announce something worse than we already know.
But information is better than speculation. Whatever we learn today will help us make better decisions.
Exactly. Knowledge, even difficult knowledge, is better than ignorance.
It's 8:02 a.m., less than an hour until the hospital administrator's brief.
Let's use this time to preview what we might hear and prepare our listeners for various possibilities. Emily, best case scenario, what could they announce?
Best case would be that treatment protocols are proving highly effective, with most patients recovering quickly, that all equipment has been verified as safe or replaced, that they're prepared to resume normal operations soon, and that no healthcare workers have had serious outcomes from their infections.
Realistic best case. Michael, worst case scenario?
Worst case would be treatment failures, patient deterioration despite protocols, inability to verify equipment safety quickly, need for extended quarantines, and significant healthcare worker casualties affecting hospital capacity.
Let's hope we hear something between those extremes. Most likely scenario?
Mixed news. Some successes, some ongoing challenges, concrete steps being taken, time frames that are longer than we'd like but not catastrophic.
That sounds probable. Complex situations rarely have simple resolutions. I'm seeing it's now 8:21 a.m. We're approaching the final stretch before the 9 a.m. briefing. Let me take a moment to step back and reflect on what we've been through in the last 16 hours or so. Yesterday evening, this city was just beginning to understand the scope of this crisis. Hospitals were being quarantined, numbers were climbing rapidly, fear was spreading. We've spent the night providing steady coverage, keeping you informed, connecting you with resources, and now we're entering day 2 with a better understanding of what we're facing and how to respond. That's progress. Not victory, but progress. We know what the pathogen is. We have treatment approaches that show promise. We've identified the contamination source and stopped it. Authorities are coordinating effectively. The public is cooperating with restrictions. Healthcare workers are performing heroically. Researchers are working around the clock. Communities are supporting each other. Yes, people are still sick. Yes, we have a long road ahead. But we're moving forward, learning, adapting, surviving. And that's what humans do. We face crises. We struggle. We find ways through. This crisis is no different. It's scary and disruptive and tragic, but it's not unsurvivable. We will get through this. Maybe not quickly, maybe not easily, but we will get through it, together. I want you to hold on to that thought as we go into these press conferences. Whatever news we hear, however difficult the information might be, remember that thousands of dedicated professionals are working to protect you and resolve this situation. You're not facing this alone. None of us are. We're all in this together, connected by shared experience and shared determination to endure and overcome. It's 8:39 a.m., 20 minutes until the hospital administrators speak. Emily, any last-minute preparations?
I have my questions ready. Background information compiled. I'm ready to help contextualize whatever they announce.
Michael?
Same. I've got fact-checking resources queued up, and I'm monitoring multiple sources to catch any breaking developments before the briefing starts.
Perfect. We're as prepared as we can be. Now we wait and listen and help our listeners understand what it all means. This is the work. This is why we're here. To stand between raw information and public understanding, helping translate complexity into clarity, helping people make sense of unprecedented situations. I'm honored to be doing this work with both of you. Thank you for your dedication and professionalism through this crisis.
Thank you for leading us through it, Daniel. You've been steady and clear and exactly what we needed.
Agreed. Appreciate you both.
All right, enough mutual appreciation. We have a job to do. It's 8:46 a.m. 14 minutes until the briefing begins. We'll take you live to that event and provide analysis immediately following. Stay with us on 91.48 FM, your continuous emergency broadcast. We're here with you for you through all of this. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together.